Chapter 1134. The blood dragon naturally noticed Wang Lin, but in its eyes, this cultivator was just like an ant. Under its night spell, this cultivator would die before he could even get close to it. In reality, this was indeed the case. The moment Wang Lin was within 1,000 feet of the blood dragon, the void was once again shrouded in darkness. However, this darkness was destined to be completely different from the previous ones. This darkness was destined to make Wang Lin the focus of the old man in black for the first time. All of this was because of Wang Lin. Wang Lin had gained some understanding of the darkness that shrouded the void. This understanding had nothing to do with cultivation, but came from his Sundered Night spell. Sundered Night spell contained a trace of the power of origin. This origin was the law of all light in the world. Under this light, all darkness would dissipate. However, everything in this world existed relative to each other. If there was the law of origin, then there would naturally be the law of the end. This darkness was formed by the law of the end. The moment the darkness shrouded the void, Wang Lin used his own cultivation to forcefully push Sundered Night without the power of the origin. He didn't hope to kill the enemy. He only hoped that this trace of power would allow him to survive in this darkness. For the first time in this seemingly eternal darkness, and also the only time, a ray of light appeared. This light was like the rising sun. Although it wasn't very eye-catching in this darkness, it still appeared. Within this light, Wang Lin felt like his entire body was burning. His origin energy was burning, his origin soul was burning, and even his rock body was burning. As the flames burned, he broke through the darkness in front of him, crossed the distance of 1,000 feet, and entered the blood dragon's shocked body. The moment he entered the blood dragon's wound, Wang Lin ignored the crazy burning of Sundered Night and waved his right hand. A large amount of blood dragon blood crystals disappeared into his storage space. His face was filled with ecstasy, but there was also regret. He didn't expect to obtain the heart blood of an ancient god here. After all, with his understanding of the land of the ancient god, he knew that all the heart blood in the ancient god's body had been taken by Tuo Senator. Wanting to obtain the heart's blood from Tuo Sen's hands was simply too difficult. He was ecstatic to obtain the heart blood, but at the same time, he had to give up observing Tuo Sen's power. This was his regret. With joy and regret, the moment the darkness disappeared, Wang Lin's origin soul burned to the end. It seemed like it was going to collapse and die again. After all, with his current cultivation level, he wasn't strong enough to forcefully push Sundered Night. However, at this moment, the black-robed old man who had raised his head to look at Wang Lin revealed a strange light in his eyes. The things he couldn't understand seemed to have been touched by the light in the darkness, and he seemed to have figured it out. He took a step, and the moment the darkness disappeared, he arrived next to the blood dragon. He casually pointed forward with his right hand, and the blood dragon's body trembled. It let out a roar and retreated like crazy. Thunderous rumbles came from its body as if it was about to collapse. The instant Wang Lin's vision became blurry, the black-robed old man's right hand grabbed at the air, and Wang Lin flew out of the blood dragon's body and landed in front of the old man. The old man's right hand slapped the space between Wang Lin's eyebrows, and an unimaginably vast power rushed into Wang Lin's body. With a series of bangs, Wang Lin immediately woke up. The origin energy he had lost was instantly replenished, and his origin soul that had dissipated reformed in a heaven-defying way. His burning body that seemed like it would collapse with a single touch was restored as if time had reversed. All of this happened in an instant. Not bad, young man. The black-robed old man looked at Wang Lin with a hint of admiration. Also very smart. Since your avatar came here to see the ancient god, the old man will satisfy your wish. Wang Lin was shocked. His pupils shrank when he heard what he was thinking, but he quickly returned to normal. The admiration in the old man's eyes became even stronger. He no longer looked at Wang Lin, nor did he look at the blood dragon that was on the verge of collapse. Instead, he pointed his right hand at the vortex in the sky. It was just one finger, but in Wang Lin's eyes, This finger seemed like it could pierce through the heavens and earth. He faintly recalled the scene in the Luo-Tian star system when this old man had used one punch to destroy the space barrier between the Luo-Tian and the Alliance. The vortex in the sky suddenly paused. As the finger pointed at it, it stopped spinning and gradually dissipated, revealing a blood-colored world without a sea of blood inside. Within this blood-colored world, there was a conical peak, and on top of that peak stood a person. This person's red hair flowed without any wind, and his eyes were completely red. This red was filled with killing intent and contained an indomitable arrogance. No one would pay attention to his appearance, because under such a pair of eyes, people would only be completely absorbed by this pair of eyes. Tuo-san. Wang Lin's expression was complicated. His relationship with Tuo-san was entangled by fate. If it wasn't for Wang Lin's appearance, Tuo-san would have already obtained all of his memories and escaped. He would have used 2C's body to dominate the universe. After all, he was also 2C. Although 2C had failed to cultivate the flowing ink divine art, the demonic intent within his body was born. However, whether it was demonic intent or not, Tuo-san was a true ancient god, a true royal ancient god. Compared to Tuo-san, Wang Lin's ancient god body had condensed a body due to the ancient god technique and had reached 5 stars due to a series of lucky chances. However, when his original body experienced the 3 trials, 7 calamities, Wang Lin understood that his ancient god body wasn't perfect. Inside the vortex, Tuo-san raised his head to look at Wang Lin. The complicated gaze disappeared from Wang Lin's eyes and was replaced with coldness and calmness. Just like that, the man and God, entangled by fate, silently met through the vortex and in 2 different worlds. The corners of Tuo-san's mouth twitched. He lifted his foot and took a step forward. With a single step, he left the conical mountain and stepped onto the vortex. His gaze swept the surroundings. When Master Flamespark met Tuo-san's gaze, his mind couldn't help but tremble. It was rare for him to hear the sound of his own heartbeat. That heartbeat caused Master Flamespark's mouth to go dry and his face to turn pale. He subconsciously retreated and didn't dare to look at Tuo-Senator. It was as if the man before him was the heavens. Trash. Tuo-san's eyes were filled with contempt. When his gaze fell on the 8 serene kings, the contempt became even stronger. At the very least, trash is still human. You guys are even worse than trash. The 8 serene kings had supreme status in the serene, but in Tuo-san's eyes, they were even worse than Master Flamespark. Their faces turned pale, and they continued to retreat. It was as if that gaze was real and made them feel like their souls were about to leave their bodies. It was as if the entire world had to yield to the anger of this man before them. They hadn't seen Tuo-san's power, but for some reason, when they saw Tuo-san, they felt fear. This feeling was very mysterious, but it reminded the 8 of them of the existence of this feeling. Because Tuo-san was a god, an 8-star ancient god, and there were only mortals, only cultivators. Only the old man in black remained calm and slowly said, "Royal, ancient god soul." Tuo-san's gaze fell on the old man in black. His expression didn't change at all, and he coldly said, "Finally, there is someone who isn't trash." The old man wasn't angry at all. He faintly smiled and casually pointed forward. The void between him and Tuo-san began to collapse. This collapse set off an invisible storm that charged at Tuo-san. Facing the attack of the collapse of the void, Tuo-san raised his right hand and threw a punch. The world trembled and the void trembled violently. At this moment, some Nirvana Shatterer cultivators arrived from all directions. When they saw this punch, their expressions changed greatly and were filled with fear and panic. Wang Lin's face was pale. He clearly felt the power of this punch. When this punch landed, the trembling of the void reached a peak. A giant crack suddenly appeared between Tuo-san and the old man in black. The sound of tearing was ear-piercing, and the crack continued to extend. In the blink of an eye, the void seemed to be split in half. This scene was like a piece of paper that was cut in the middle and finally split into two halves. The crack in space immediately split the place where Tu-Ah-San was into two worlds. The black-robed old man took a step forward and disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already in the other half of the void. He did not even need to form a seal with his right hand. With a wave of his sleeve, a series of rumbles suddenly rang out. Glaciers appeared one after another, and in the blink of an eye, they covered an area of 10,000 kilometers. Everything within 5,000 kilometers was covered in ice. All of them were sealed in ice. The ice mountains collapsed and rushed towards Tu-Ah Sr., a mere spell. Even if you've reached the nirvana void stage and comprehended law, so what? Tu-Ah Sin's eyes were filled with monstrous arrogance. He let out a laugh and threw another punch. We, the ancient god clan, do not cultivate the rules, because the rules are something that our clan wants to break. As Tu-Ah Sin's fist descended, cracking sounds echoed out in the world of glaciers. Fissures spread out across the surface of the ice mountains, as well as the layers of ice covering thousands of kilometers in all directions. All of them collapsed under the force of the fist strike. The old man in black charged out with a serious expression. The layer of ice collapsed, turning into a storm that soared into the sky. But as it collapsed, Tu-Ah Sin's body floated up. I'll let you all personally witness the might of my clan. Tu-Ah Sin's gaze wasn't on the old man in black, but on Wang Lin. At this moment, his red-haired body gradually dissipated, slowly disappearing into nothingness. At the same time, the void trembled once more and cracks appeared. It was as if a tyrannical force was going to tear the void apart. In the sky, a giant vortex appeared where Tu-Ah Sun disappeared. The vortex gave off a powerful suction force. The old man in black's eyes were calm as he stepped into the vortex. All of you follow me. Next is the true power of the ancient god darkness. The old man's voice echoed, and Wang Lin stepped into the vortex without hesitation. He had a complicated expression and vaguely knew that the vortex would lead to the spatial rift outside Tu-C's body. Inside the spatial rift, where Tu-C's body was stored, was a giant ancient god the size of several cultivation planets. His fingers moved, and he slowly clenched his fist. His eyes that had been closed for countless years slowly opened for the first time since the moment he closed them. 5 chapters, 15,000 words. He had once again completed this almost impossible number of words. He looked at the small mountain in the ashtray and the 3 empty Red Bull cans on the table. His body was filled with exhaustion, but also excitement. Yes, he had completed it again. However, there was still regret in his heart. Today's goal was 7 chapters, but I overestimated my body. Even now, I still can't do it. After working hard for a month, I'm satisfied with 5th place. Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. Brothers and sisters who have read this chapter acknowledge Air Jin's efforts. Please vote for Air General. Air Jin's desire for monthly votes is intense. Chapter 1135. The moment the giant ancient god opened his eyes, the spatial crack he was in began to tremble violently. It was as if an unimaginable aura had filled the entire spatial crack. This caused the spatial crack to become unstable, as if it could be torn open at any moment. The eyes that were as calm as the dead sea revealed the passage of time. His rough skin was like the cracked earth of an abandoned planet. As he silently looked up, the giant's expression gradually became ferocious. There were 8 dim ancient god stars between his eyebrows. However, at that moment, as the giant opened his eyes and awakened from eternity, the first ancient god star among the 8 ancient god stars slowly began to shine. A thunderous rumble echoed across the entire spatial crack. This sound was far louder than thunder, but if one listened carefully, they would hear the sound of bones rubbing against each other. The ancient god, whose body was as big as several cultivation planets, and a planet before him was like a toy, slowly sat up. If a cultivator didn't know spatial bending, it would take several hours to fly the distance between lying down and sitting up. Wang Lin stared dumbfoundedly at the giant ancient god. The moment he stood up, a storm swept by, forcing him and the people around him to retreat. Only the old man in black stared ahead with a strange light in his eyes. Compared to the ancient god before them, the bodies of these cultivators were countless times smaller than ants. "I'm an ancient god, too, son." A mighty voice echoed, and large amounts of spatial cracks appeared in the surrounding spatial cracks. Serene's 8 kings' faces were pale, and they wanted to retreat. However, before this giant ancient god, there was no way to retreat. This is a god. Master Flamespark's face became even more pale as he stared at the unimaginable body of the ancient god. Even with his cultivation level, he felt a rare sense of powerlessness in his heart. Wang Lin's cultivation level was the weakest, so he didn't cough out blood. However, even more cracks appeared on his body. One of the cracks on his chest had already pierced through his body. His face was black. This was a sign that his origin soul was seriously injured and his body was about to turn to stone. Some of the Nirvana Shatterer cultivators that had rushed over earlier also entered the spatial crack. There weren't many of them, and they were all dumbfounded. With their cultivation level and mental fortitude, they could remain calm under the spell of time. However, what they saw almost caused their minds to collapse. In particular, the voice caused their origin souls to become unstable. It was as if thunder had exploded in their ears, and countless echoes echoed in their ears. The eyes of the ancient god that was sitting up gradually became cold, and the second star between his eyebrows shined brightly. If you looked closely, you could vaguely see that there was something special inside this shining ancient god star. He looked at the cultivators floating before him and raised his right hand. It was like a mortal driving away a flying insect. His arm, which was comparable to a cultivation planet, swept across the area, creating a powerful gust of wind. There was also a power that no one could resist. It was as if distance didn't exist in front of the ancient god. From a moment he raised his right arm to the moment he swung it, only a moment had passed. However, in the eyes of the surrounding cultivators, it had replaced the entire world in their eyes. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The deafening rumbles still hadn't clearly entered their ears when the giant ancient god arm closed in. The arm's speed was indescribable, and the Nirvana Shatterer cultivator at the front couldn't dodge at all. His hands formed a seal, and his cultivation surged. Layers of protection appeared around him, and in the blink of an eye, tens of thousands of layers of protection appeared. He retreated in an attempt to resist this planet-sized arm at the risk of being seriously injured. The arm closed in and touched the layers of protection around the cultivator. The tens of thousands of layers of protection were as fragile as a piece of paper before the ancient god's arm. With a bang, the outermost and innermost layer of the tens of thousands of protective layers of light around the cultivator's body collapsed at the same time. In truth, there was a difference in when they collapsed, but the difference was negligible. This was because the giant arm didn't stop at all and simply swept by. When the layers of protection collapsed, the early-stage Nirvana Shatterer cultivator that had cultivated for tens of thousands of years revealed a miserable smile as his body exploded into a flower of blood. It was as if his blood had bloomed on the ancient god's arm. His Yuan spirit also dissipated, turning into a ball of heaven-earth Yuan Qi that was sucked into the rough crack on the ancient god's arm. Seeing that the ancient god arm didn't stop and continued to wave, the old man in black's eyes lit up. He took a step and crossed countless distances to appear before the ancient god arm. The old man's body was really insignificant compared to the giant arm. It was even negligible. However, the old man's expression was calm as he raised his right hand and pushed forward. With a boom, it was as if countless bolts of lightning had exploded between the old man and the ancient god's arm, turning into a world-shaking bolt of lightning. The arm, which seemed like it would never stop moving, stopped in front of the old man and collided with his palm. In that instant, the violent wind seemed to have just caught up to the speed of the ancient god's arm, blowing against the old man's body. This wind could collapse mountains, scatter human flesh, and extinguish souls. But at this moment, it only made the old man's hair float up. A silk scarf tied to his pale, white hair split in the middle with a pa sound and floated backwards. The old man's black robes were also blown backwards by the wind. 7 cracks appeared on his sleeves, and as they fluttered, they turned into dust and disappeared into the world. The skin on his right hand, which had collided with the ancient god, trembled as if there was a layer of ripples spreading under his skin. The ripples spread through his right arm, and a few more cracks appeared on the old man's right sleeve. In the end, it was broken, and it floated behind the old man, turning into dust. The old man raised his head, and his eyes shone brightly. His face was strangely flushed, and he suppressed the blood that was about to spit out from his throat. As he laughed, he raised his left hand and quickly tapped the back of his right hand 5 times. The moment the first finger landed, an invisible force seemed to shatter the sealed spatial crack. Heaven-Earth origin energy in a radius of 10,000 miles gathered into a storm that flowed through the back of his right hand and into the ancient god's arm. It was clearly not enough to fight against the ancient god. When the old man's finger fell a second time, the origin energy that could destroy the world surged crazily within 100,000 kilometers, 1,000,000 kilometers, 10 million kilometers. It turned into the 5 fingers and formed a peak power that rushed into the ancient god's arm. All of this happened in a flash. It was so fast that the surrounding cultivators didn't even have a chance to react. A thunderous rumble echoed. The ancient god's giant arm trembled and was forced back by the old man. However, there was a clear black handprint on the ancient god's arm. He is indeed worthy of being an 8-star royal ancient god that only Nirvana Void cultivators can fight. Compared to the ordinary 8-star ancient god that the old man participated in killing, is like the difference between heaven and earth. The old man retreated, and the ruddiness on his face disappeared. It was replaced with paleness, but his eyes were as bright as the moon and were filled with battle intent. After retreating 7 steps, the old man suddenly raised his head and unexpectedly arrived on the ancient god arm. He borrowed this force to jump into the air and shot toward Tuo Sen's face like a meteor. Tuo Sen's eyes were still cold and filled with arrogance. His right hand trembled and the almost undetectable handprint collapsed. A thunderous rumble echoed, and his giant body slowly stood up. When he stood there, he seemed to be able to prop up heaven and earth, and the might of the heavenly Tao descended with a bang. That was especially true of Tuo Sen's forehead. After 2 stars lit up, a 3rd star began to shine brightly. However, there was something hidden deep within that 3rd star, something that couldn't be seen clearly and couldn't be sensed. Only Wang Lin stared at Tuo Sen before him, especially at the stars between Tuo Sen's eyebrows. He was shocked. In his memories, he knew of the spell of an 8-star royal ancient god. However, he only knew the name of the spell and didn't know how to use it. Star Annihilation Void. Trash. A buzzing sound echoed. Tuo Sen waved his hands, and a violent gust of wind shot toward the old man. He moved so fast that it was as if the ground had shrunk to an inch. In an instant, he closed in on the old man. Tuo Sen's arms were like 2 huge cultivation planets as they slammed toward the old man. The old man's face turned red once more. His robes fluttered, and he stretched his arms to the left and right. With a roar, an endless amount of origin energy gathered, and glaciers appeared around the old man's arms. Beyond the glaciers was a sea of fire, and beyond the sea of fire were countless mountains. Beyond the mountains were endless lightning. As the layers of divine abilities overlapped with each other, the old man stretched out his arms and attacked the ancient god's arm that was charging at him. In an instant, the rift in space trembled violently. Booming sounds rang out without end. From afar, it looked as if countless fireworks were blooming on Tuo Sen's arms. However, these divine abilities only caused Tuo Sen's arm to pause for a moment. However, to the black-clothed old man, this moment was enough for him to charge out of Tuo Sen's arms, step through the air, and directly charge towards his head. Master Limitless, if you don't show yourself, don't blame the old man for not keeping his promise. Have you forgotten our agreement by hiding here? The black-robed old man roared as he moved forward. Chapter 1136. The moment the voice echoed, the middle-aged scholar, sitting in the depths of the fourth of the 8 ancient god stars on Tuo Sen's forehead, opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness, but there was also a hint of bitterness. Master Lu Fu, the old man hasn't forgotten our promise, but there's nothing I can do. You quickly leave. An ancient voice filled with bitterness slowly spread out from the spatial crack. However, as the fourth star between Ta Sen's eyebrows shined brighter and brighter until it was as bright as the first 3 stars, the voice became weaker and weaker until it completely disappeared. The moment the voice disappeared, the expression of the old man in black changed, and Wang Lin was filled with shock. With his understanding of the ancient gods, he vaguely guessed what had happened. At that moment, Master Wuji's voice echoed once more. This time it was an angry roar. Leave quickly. The fourth star between Tuo Sen's brows was originally pitch black. One could only vaguely see its appearance, but the surroundings were blurry. However, at this moment, as Tuo Sen woke up, it was no longer dark. Instead, there were specks of sparkling light that vaguely lit up the surroundings. The middle-aged scholar, sitting there, looked normal at first glance. But if one looked closely, they would be shocked to see that the lower half of his body had already merged with the ground. It was impossible to tell them apart, as if they had grown together. The crystalline light did not suddenly appear from all directions. Instead, it came from within the middle-aged scholar's body. Every strand of crystalline light that came out caused the scholar's face to become paler and weaker. At this moment, the specks of light surrounded him and lit up the surroundings. His body instantly withered until he was only skin and bones, looking like a skeleton. And yet he didn't die, nor would he die. He could only spend countless years in silence. However, he wasn't willing to accept it. That unwillingness transformed into a struggle. His facial features twisted, and he forced his cultivation base to rotate. Then, he lifted his head and let out a roar. The pupils of the old man in black shrank, and his expression became extremely serious. He retreated and stared at the fourth star between Tuo Sen's eyebrows. At that moment, he clearly felt that Master Wuji's voice had come from there. However, the strange thing was that when the old man in black swept by with his divine sense, he didn't find anything. Thinking about what Master Wuji had said, the old man in black's mind trembled, and he retreated without hesitation. You can't escape. The disdain in Tuo Sen's ice-cold eyes grew even stronger. It was filled with ridicule, and there was an expression that said he viewed everyone else as ants. He was extremely arrogant. You will be this god's 5th ancient star after Master Wuji. Tuo Sen's voice echoed through the world. He raised his right foot and stomped forward. However, at this moment, the fourth star between his eyebrows shined brightly. This light was completely different from the previous 3 stars. It seemed like it was about to collapse, causing Tuo Sen's right foot to stop. The old man in black was originally retreating, but at this moment he turned around and his right hand reached at the void. A broken sword immediately appeared in his hand. This sword was only half complete, but the moment it appeared, an unimaginable pressure rushed into the sky. The old man bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood. It landed on the broken sword, and he threw it at Tuo Senator. The broken sword whistled through the air and charged out with heaven-shaking killing intent and sword energy. Tuo Sen's body paused for a moment before returning to normal. His right foot landed, but the moment it touched the broken sword, he let out a roar and a blood light appeared on his right foot. The broken sword pierced through the ancient god Tuo Sen's right foot and entered his body. It pierced through his right leg and headed straight for Tuo Sen's face. The speed of this broken sword was far faster than a Nirvana Shatterer cultivator. Even someone at the mid-stage of the Heaven's Blight couldn't compare to the speed of this broken sword. All of this happened in a flash. The broken sword pierced through Tuo Sen's right leg. In another flash, it closed in on Tuo Sen's face and went straight for the fourth star between his eyebrows. At this moment, the light from the fourth star became even brighter. It was as if Master Wuji was trying to escape. However, just as the broken sword broke through all the barriers and was less than 100 feet from the fourth star, the light from the fourth star reached its peak. The third star between Toa Sin's eyebrows also shined brightly, and a person unexpectedly walked out. This person was like a skeleton, so it was impossible to see his original appearance. His hair was a mess, and his body was naked. With just one step, he arrived next to the broken sword and mercilessly squeezed it. It was difficult to describe the elegance of this squeeze. From Wang Lin's point of view, this squeeze was like moving clouds and flowing water, and it contained a certain law of the world. It was even a bit inappropriate to call it that. It was as if the law of the world changed because of this person's squeeze. The broken sword's momentum suddenly stopped. 2 fingers appeared on the sword's body. No matter how much the broken sword struggled, it could not escape from these 2 fingers. However, the owner of the 2 fingers, the skeleton-like cultivator, also suffered a great impact. Popping sounds echoed from his body as if he was going to collapse. His dim eyes shined brightly, and a crescent moon mark appeared between his eyebrows. It was clearly visible to everyone. With a roar, he mercilessly flicked the 2 fingers on his right hand. The direction of the broken sword was instantly changed, and it flew up. After doing all of this, the skeleton's chest heaved up and down as he returned to the third star. This scene caused Wang Lin's face to become bitter. The black-clothed old man's eyes flickered, and he waved his right hand without hesitation. The broken sword disappeared without a trace, and the black-clothed old man turned around and left. His speed was so fast that he faintly tore open a spatial crack and was about to leave. "You can't escape." Toa Sin's eyes lit up, and the 5th star between his eyebrows was dim without any light. However, at this moment, Toa Sin used some unknown spell that caused it to rotate by itself. Its rotation speed reached a limit, and from afar, it looked like a black hole. It left Toa Sin's eyebrows and charged at the old man in black. However, the moment the star left the space between his eyebrows, a rumbling sound came from the 4th star. The crystal light exploded and spread out, forming an obstruction that surrounded the 5th star. "Master Lu Fu, quickly leave." The old man was wrong. He was very wrong. He shouldn't have coveted the power of a royal ancient god to break through the early stage of Nirvana Void. As a result, he ended up like this. Inside the 4th star, Master Limitless coughed out blood and his body trembled. He had fused with the ancient god to stop the 5th star from devouring him. He knew that if Master Lu Fu was also devoured, he would never have a chance to escape. If he wanted to escape, he could only risk everything to save Master Lu Fu. Only then would he have a chance to survive. The old man in black did not stop. He took a step forward, and suddenly a ripple appeared in front of him, forming a whirlpool. It was at this point that Toa Sin's eyes flickered with coldness. Ignoring the fact that his 5th star had been blocked, he lifted his right hand and then made a grasping motion. Immediately, violet lightning began to flicker within the spatial rift, which then transformed into a gigantic spear the size of several planets. God-slaying spear. This was a true royal ancient god treasure, the god-slaying spear. Holding the spear, Toa Sin's expression was ferocious as he mercilessly threw it. The god-slaying spear let out an earth-shattering howl and shot toward the old man in black with the power of an ancient god. It was so fast that not even divine sense could detect it. In an instant, the god-slaying spear closed in. Along the way, the spatial cracks continued to collapse, forming a series of afterimages. The black-clothed old man's face was gloomy. Even if he could step into the vortex and leave, he would definitely be injured by the god-annihilating spear. If he was delayed for too long, the 5th star would escape, and he would probably be left here today. However, he didn't have time to think about it. He stepped in the vortex, and his hands formed a seal. The broken sword appeared before him, and he coughed out blood once more. He waved his hand, and the broken sword shot toward the god-slaying spear. Wang Lin silently watched this. He had seen how powerful Toa San was. Although he had a bit of understanding from 2C's memories, seeing it with his own eyes was different from the memories. He stared at the god-slaying spear. For others, this spear was like the might of the heavens that could harvest all life. However, in Wang Lin's eyes, this god-slaying spear was only a magic treasure. The broken sword collided with the god-slaying spear. The size of the broken sword couldn't compare to the god-slaying spear at all, but its aura was only a bit weaker. Although the broken sword couldn't be seen, the god-slaying spear suddenly paused. A thunderous rumble echoed, and the broken sword was knocked back into the void. The god-slaying spear trembled, and thunderous rumbles came from it. After pausing for a moment, it charged forward once more. I can't let the old man in black be devoured by Tuo Sen's star. This was the only thought in Wang Lin's mind. The moment the god-slaying spear paused, he charged forward without any hesitation. His speed reached its limit, and he arrived before the giant god-slaying spear. His action caused the old man in black's eyes to narrow, Master Flamespark to be startled, and the 8 kings of Serene to look over in terror. Wang Lin closed his eyes. The moment the god-slaying spear closed in, his body collapsed into a pile of rubble. However, the sliver of his origin soul that was about to be destroyed formed a seal and spat out a divine sense aimed at the god-slaying spear. With my divine sense, Wang Lin, I'll stop you from moving forward. The god-slaying spear suddenly trembled, and a tyrannical aura came from it. This represented Tuo Sen's divine sense. It collided with Wang Lin's fragile origin soul and collapsed. I'll keep the first ancient god star for you. This was the last thing Wang Lin heard before his origin soul was destroyed. Without Wang Lin stopping it, the god-slaying spear flew out. However, its pause and tremble gave the old man in black enough time to disappear into the vortex. Master Flamespark, the 8 kings of Serene, and they all disappeared into the vortex. The god-slaying spear collided with the vortex. A shocking force tore through the vortex and echoed like crazy. Just as Master Flamespark walked out from the vortex, he was immediately affected by this force. He coughed out blood, and his body immediately weakened. His legs exploded into a mist of blood. His primordial spirit immediately became unstable as the power surged into it. Master Flamespark revealed a bitter smile, and his eyes were filled with hatred. His hatred for Tuo Sen was second only to Master Zhongxian. Seeing the shocking force arrive once more, Master Flamespark's eyes were filled with madness. He was about to give up his body to explode in exchange for his origin soul to escape. The old man in black appeared next to Master Flamespark. He grabbed Master Flamespark and disappeared in a flash. The 8 kings of the corpse sect finally managed to escape the vortex, but in an instant, the shocking force arrived. The 8 of them trembled and their bodies collapsed. They turned into 8 strands of cold energy that tried to escape, but under the shocking force, 5 of them collapsed. The remaining 3 finally took out their coffins, entered their bodies, and fled once again. However, the shocking power slammed into them, causing their fleshly bodies to explode. This cycle continued. The distance of less than 10,000 feet was like the end of the world for the 3 of them. Blood sprayed everywhere, and another person died. The remaining 2 kings of the corpse sect were almost scared out of their wits. While they were escaping, they saw the shockwaves of the shockwaves closing in. While they were in despair, a ripple of black gas appeared around them. 2 arms suddenly reached out, grabbed the 2 of them, and dragged them toward the vortex. Middle Sovereign! Their eyes were filled with ecstasy. They didn't resist and allowed the arms to pull them into the vortex. At this moment, the shockwave from the god-slaying spear arrived and entered the vortex. Muffled groans came from inside, but in the end, they were able to withstand it and disappeared with the vortex. Outside Sizku, on the moon, inside the very ordinary mountain, Wang Lin opened his eyes. After a moment of confusion, he suddenly stood up and waved his right hand to put the silver female corpse into his storage space. He destroyed the formation on the ground and disappeared with spatial bending. When he reappeared, He was already among the stars and was very far away from Suzuko. However, Wang Lin didn't stop and continued to move forward. His face was pale and gloomy. He had never felt fear before, but his mind was trembling. Tu Sen's words echoed in his mind. I'll keep the first ancient god star for you. Facing Ta Sen, even if my original body has gone through the 3 trials, 7 calamities, and I have the trident, I won't be a match for one punch. Wang Lin had a bitter expression. He didn't know if Tu Sen had escaped, but he knew that he couldn't stay in the Alliance star system any longer. He had to leave as soon as possible and never come back, unless he had the power to resist Tu Sen. He bitterly disappeared once more. He used spatial bending and reappeared on a remote, abandoned planet. Before he went to the 4 Divine Sect to see the Azure Dragon Divine Emperor, he had set up a formation there. He finished writing 1,000 more words than usual. Today, it was 7,000 words. He looked at it himself and was very satisfied. This month, the focus was on quality. He had to do his best to make the Renegade Celestial look better. He was looking for votes. He didn't know what was happening in December, but the number of people fighting for votes had increased. In the dense fog, the continent of Luo was faintly discernible. At the center of the continent was a towering black tower that gave off a gentle light that shrouded the entire continent. This made it so that the fog couldn't enter the continent, and some of it was scattered by the gentle light. This allowed the outside of the continent to become clear. It wasn't that the Cloud Sea didn't have cultivation planets, but they were extremely rare. Most of them were concentrated in the rank 7 and above star systems, and there were less than 100 of them. In the rank 7 and below star systems, the most common thing were the floating continents. These continents represented the various sects in the Cloud Sea. In the northern part of the continent of Luo, rain fell from the sky. This rain covered the world, and it had been raining for an unknown amount of time. The ground was covered in mud, and the dense leaves were bent as if they couldn't lift their spines due to the pressure of the rain. The rain formed lines that connected the edges of the leaves and fell to the ground. The little beasts hid in the corner, silently shivering in the rain. On the ground, there would occasionally be small, colorful snakes moving through the mud as if they were playing. This kind of rainy night was the perfect time for them to look for food. This was a forest. In the rain, other than the sound of the rain and the flapping of leaves, there was no other sound. It was relatively quiet. Thunder would occasionally flash across the sky, illuminating the land shrouded in darkness. In the depths of the jungle, there was an open space about 1,000 feet wide. This place had been cleared by someone, and a formation had been set up. The rain had washed away some of the dirt, making the formation very clear. There were no cultivators around. The last group of cultivators guarding the formation had left 3 months ago. They had given up on the formation, but it wasn't destroyed. It was as if they still had a glimmer of hope. Thunder flashed once more in the night, and the earth lit up. Crackling sounds came from the formation, but this sound was completely drowned out by the rumbling thunder. Blue light lit up the formation and gradually surrounded the formation. The rain in the sky seemed to speed up as if it knew that a person that didn't belong to the Cloud Sea, a cultivator that would rise in the Cloud Sea and shock the 4 celestial realms, was about to appear. The rain became heavier and heavier. The thunder increased in intensity. Chapter 1138. In the far eastern part of the continent of Luo, there was a mountain range. This mountain range was very strange. It wasn't winding like a dragon, but it was connected in a ring. Within this ring-shaped mountain range was a huge basin. The basin was filled with pavilions that were brightly lit in the night. However, at this moment, there was an aura of sorrow that filled the basin. It was as if even the rain couldn't suppress this sorrow, and not even the thunder and lightning in the sky could make this sorrow dissipate at all. There were 8 100-foot thick pillars scattered in 8 directions outside the basin. The distance between them wasn't different at all. It was as if they grew from the mountain range and pierced into the sky. About 30,000 meters below the basin, the 8 stone pillars were connected to a huge Taoist temple. From a distance, it looked as if the ancient Taoist temple were supported by the 8 stone pillars that hung in midair. Aside from being majestic, this Taoist temple was very ordinary and filled with simplicity. However, this simplicity contained a majesty that shrouded the earth. At this moment, as the rain fell rapidly, bursts of bell sounds echoed inside the mountain range. The bell sounds were solemn, and the moment it echoed, it broke through the rain and replaced the thunder. However, this caused the sorrow in the basin to become even stronger, and there were even faint sounds of crying. Inside the basin, countless cultivators walked out of the pavilions. There were men and women, young and old, and they wore Taoist robes. They didn't care that the rain fell on their bodies and wet their hair. They didn't use any spells. They looked up at the Taoist temple with sorrow. They allowed the rain to fall on their faces, and the tears in their eyes flowed down their cheeks. In the Taoist temple above the basin sat an old man in a Taoist robe. This old man had a kind expression, but at this moment, his face was pale and calm. Before him were 4 people kneeling. Among the 4, there were 3 men and 1 woman. Aside from 1 man and 1 woman who were middle-aged, the other 2 were old men. They knelt there with sadness in their eyes, but the respect in their eyes hadn't lessened at all. This was especially so for the woman. She was very beautiful and had a sense of determination. However, at this moment, she was biting her lower lip as tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes and landed on the ground, wetting it. Master's lifespan is coming to an end. You don't have to be too sad. This day will come for us cultivators. After I leave, the Gui Yuan sect will fall on the shoulders of the 4 of you. The old man's eyes were filled with kindness and reluctance as he slowly said, Master. More tears flowed down the woman's cheeks. She looked at the elder in front of her, and memories flashed through her mind. The expressions of the other 3 became even more sorrowful. Unfortunately, the old man still hasn't reached the nirvana shatterer stage. Otherwise, he wouldn't have ended up like this when he was at the rank 8 spirit origin sect. The old man shook his head. There was unwillingness in his eyes, but even more helplessness. The middle-aged man clenched his fist and said, Master, the Purple Tao sect placed a formation on the continent of Mo Luo and secretly entered the Alliance star system. Why hasn't the main sect returned? Why is the main sect releasing their anger on our origin sect? The old man in the Taoist robe silently pondered, and his face became even more pale. A death aura surrounded his body, and he slowly said, The main sect must have a reason for doing this. It's best if you all don't understand. If you're unwilling, then in 100 years, during the competition between the main sect, let my origin sect escape from the last place it has been in for thousands of years. Then I'll be able to smile in the underworld. The 4 of them silently pondered, and their faces were filled with sadness and bitterness. The competition that happened once every 1,000 years was a grand ceremony in the Cloud Sea. All the sects in the Cloud Sea would participate, but their origin sect would always be last and would never be able to soar into the sky. The death aura around the old man in the Taoist robe became even stronger. He took a deep breath as he looked at the rain outside the Taoist temple and raised his bone-like right hand. This hand wasn't like this a few months ago, but now it was as if half of the flesh and blood had been sucked dry, making it look like a skeleton. Seeing the old man's hand, the woman among the 4 people kneeling on the ground cried even more. The other 3 clenched their fists tightly and gritted their teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. The old man in the Taoist robe didn't look at his right hand, but waved his hand. A crack to his storage space immediately appeared. This storage space was purplish red, and the moment it appeared, a terrifying aura came from inside. Shortly after, a purplish-black python slowly poked its head out. The python's head was dozens of feet long. When it appeared in the Taoist temple, a powerful pressure immediately spread out. However, this python looked a bit tired. When it poked its head out, it circled around the old man in the Taoist robe. Its eyes were filled with sadness and reluctance, and its tongue touched the old man's body. After I die, this rank 5 purple-eyed python will be the guardian beast of my Gui Yuan sect. All of you, take good care of it. The old man's face was no longer pale. Instead, it was strangely rosy, and his spirit was lifted. However, this excitement was like the final radiance of a setting sun, and the end of his life was near. Now, let me use my last bit of life to cast the soul selection technique and choose a companion spirit for the Gui Yuan sect. Back then, I was chosen by your ancestral master this way. At that time, I was just a youth from a mountain village. The old man smiled as he reminisced. He formed a seal with his hands and silently closed his eyes. The 4 people in front of him looked at the old man with sadness. They knew that all the sect masters of the Origin sect, unless they died in a foreign land, would burn everything in their last moments to use the pool spirit spell. They would choose someone who would be of great help to the Origin sect on the continent of Mo Luo for the next few hundred or thousands of years. This spell was extremely mysterious, and no one could explain the principle behind it. Even the old man in the Taoist robe didn't know. He only knew that the swamp spirit spell had been passed down for a very long time. This spell didn't succeed every time. In truth, over the countless years, the sect leaders of the Origin sect had only used this spell twice before they died. The rest were all failures. This meant that at that moment, there was no one on the continent that met the requirements. The old man in the Taoist robe burned his last sliver of vitality and Origin soul. At this moment, a blue flame appeared on his body, and he gradually disappeared before his 4 disciples. During this process, his divine sense was unprecedentedly clear, as if he had vaguely come into contact with some mysterious law. Under this law, his divine sense spread across the continent of Mo Luo to search for a companion spirit. He searched again and again, but in the end, there was no sign of a companion spirit. The old man in the Taoist robe let out a sigh. He understood that the swamp spirit spell didn't succeed. At this moment, his body in the Taoist temple was burned by the green flames. Only his head was left, and it looked like it was about to completely disappear into thin air. However, just at this moment, his clear divine sense suddenly noticed a ray of light in the forest in the northern part of the continent of Luo. The reason he paid attention to this forest was because that was where the transfer array to the Alliance star system was located. He could clearly see the teleportation rune shining brightly in the forest. At the same time, a white figure slowly appeared within the light. His white hair fluttered in the dark night, and the rain in the world seemed to tremble. Even the rumbling thunder seemed to be afraid of this person, and they all dissipated. The old man in the Taoist robe's divine sense fluctuated violently. His divine sense had never been this clear before. When he saw the young man in white, he suddenly had a terrifying guess. This person wasn't a cultivator of the cloud sea. Just at this moment, the young man in white raised his head and coldly glanced at the sky. With this one glance, the thunder suddenly appeared and all the lightning retreated. The old man in the Taoist robe's mind trembled. The young man in white's gaze had actually caused his mind to tremble, especially since he was inside the swamp spirit body and had fused with the mysterious law of the world. He felt like he could see countless vengeful souls surrounding the young man in white. There were too many vengeful souls, and they stared at the young man in white with hatred. However, none of them dared to approach. These were all the people that Wang Lin had killed in his life. An extreme sense of crisis shrouded the old man's mind. He quickly withdrew his divine sense and wanted to tell this news to his disciple as soon as possible. He wanted his disciple to immediately escape and report this news to the main sect. Inside the Taoist temple, the old man who was about to be burned suddenly opened his eyes. This sudden action caused the 4 people before him to look up. Northern region. He only had time to say these 2 words before the end of his life approached. His origin soul collapsed, and his divine sense turned into nothingness. All traces of him disappeared from this world. With a strong sense of unwillingness and a crazy struggle, the moment the old man disappeared, he roared one more word. White hair. The four of them stared blankly ahead. Their master had passed away, but the four words he said before he left were firmly engraved in their minds. Even though they did not know why their master's expression was filled with shock at the last moment. Inside the Origin sect, the sound of the bell echoed and the sound of crying spread out. It was filled with sadness, reluctance, confusion, and hesitation. All disciples of the Origin sect go to the northern part of Mo and find anyone with the talent to cultivate, regardless of age, especially white hair. In the northern jungle of the continent of Mo, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze from the sky. The rain fell on his body, soaking the snow he had brought with him from the Alliance star system. The snow flowed down his clothes as Wang Lin slowly walked forward. The snow of the Alliance and the rain of the Cloud Sea were one at this moment. When you leave, the snow sends you. When you come, the rain welcomes you. Seems pretty good. Wang Lin took a deep breath of the air of the Cloud Sea and walked into the depths of the jungle. Chapter 1139. Wang Lin slowly walked through the jungle. There were small snakes moving in the mud under his feet and fist-sized toads jumping in the mud. They seemed to enjoy the rain. This was the first time Wang Lin had come to the Cloud Sea, so he was unfamiliar with everything. He didn't know where he was. As he walked through the mud, Wang Lin gradually began to ponder. He had come here to hide from Tuo Sun, but with Tuo Sin's cultivation base, he would be able to break through the barrier between the two worlds. At that time, it would seem that there would be no place for him to hide in the starry sky. Instead of constantly escaping, it is better to gain a foothold in the Cloud Sea as soon as possible. Once my original body passes the 3 trials, 7 calamities, I can think about my future path. Wang Lin looked at his legs below his waist and revealed a worried expression. The most important thing is to use the identity of someone from the Cloud Sea to truly integrate with the cultivators of the Cloud Sea. Wang Lin looked up at the rain falling from the sky. Just like how the snow in the Alliance could integrate with the rain in the Cloud Sea, this was what he needed to do. As he moved forward, his body gradually became shorter and his hair slowly turned black. His appearance also changed slightly. He looked even more ordinary, like a scholar in dire straits. He gradually walked out of the jungle in the rain. The rainy season on the continent of Mo would last for several months until the earth was completely wet, until one's bones would feel sore and one's body would give off the smell of rust. Only then would the rain stop. Whether it was the cultivators or mortals on the continent of Mo, they were all used to the rain. Most cultivators would choose to go into closed-door cultivation during the rainy season or leave the continent to hunt fierce beasts. However, during this rainy season, almost all the disciples of the only cultivation sect on the continent of Mo, the Origin sect, came out in the rain. They turned into rays of light and flew toward the northern part of the continent of Mo. The rainbow pierced through the sky, as if it was parting a path in the rain. If one looked up from the ground, they would naturally see a magnificent scene like a shooting star. As for mortals, when the rainy season came, they would sit by the fireplace at home and enjoy the warmth of the room. Sometimes, they would look at the rain and mist outside the window. It was calm, but there was warmth in it. The North Water Village was just like its name. It was located in the northern part of the continent of Mo, less than 500 kilometers away from the Bin Valley jungle. The people in the village often farmed for a living, and the villagers formed hunting teams that hunted around the Bin Valley jungle. The rainy season was also when the water toads appeared. For the mortals of the continent of Mo, the water toads were a very delicious food. In the big cities, the price was often on the high side, but it was still in short supply. Every rainy season, the villagers of the North Water Village would organize experienced people to go out of the Bin Valley forest to catch water toads. During the several months of the rainy season, the villagers would come and go 4 or 5 times. Every time they came back, they would carry large sacks filled with still alive water toads. Similarly, when the villagers who caught the water toads returned to the village, their families would all wear straw raincoats. There were even some children following behind them, excitedly looking at their fathers, brothers, uncles, or grandfathers as they brought back bags of water toads. Every time this happened, these children would be in high spirits. However, this time, aside from bringing back bags of water toads, the villagers of the Northwater Village also brought back a person. This was a very ordinary-looking young man who was a bit thin. It was as if he couldn't withstand the cold and the rain. He was wearing the raincoat the villagers had given him. He silently stood there with a strange expression in his eyes. It was as if he was reminiscing about the past as he silently looked at the village in the rain. "Brother Tsang, this is our Northwater Village. You can stay here for a while. Once the rainy season is over and the mountain road is open, you can follow the mountain road to Spring City." A burly man wearing a raincoat handed the sack to the person next to him and smiled at Wang Lin. Wang Lin revealed a smile and clasped his hands to express his thanks. The burly man waved his hand and smiled. "I've never been to a private school and don't know any etiquette. However, since we met on the road, we are friends. Brother Tsang, there's no need to be polite. The rain is heavy. Go inside. My son's mother, clean up the back room and let Brother Tsang live there." A woman wearing a raincoat next to the burly man looked at Wang Lin and also revealed a smile. She didn't ask her husband about the origin of this young man and quickly returned home. She tidied up the back room and brought back clean bedding. This burly man had a lot of prestige in the village. At night, many neighbors came to his house and they naturally drank wine. Wang Lin sat at the side with a bowl of wine in his hand. As he drank, he looked at these mortals in front of him with a smile. His heart was calm and peaceful. After 30 minutes, these men laughed loudly. A middle-aged man in his 40s stood up and came to Wang Lin with a bowl of wine. He smiled and said, "Brother Tsang, our third brother said that if it wasn't for you, he wouldn't have survived after being bitten by that poisonous snake. This old man will never forget the kindness of saving his life." As he said that, he drank the entire bowl of wine in one gulp. Wang Lin had a smile on his face. He picked up a jar of wine on the table and took a big gulp. He wiped the corner of his mouth with his left hand and smiled. "This wine isn't strong enough." The surrounding men's eyes lit up and they all cheered. The owner of this house, the man who let Wang Lin live in a back room, smiled and said, "Wife, go and bring the 3 jars of Northwater wine that the old man left behind. Let Brother Tsang know that our Northwater Village has strong wine." The burly man's wife shook her head and smiled. She went into the back room with 2 nephews following her. Not long after, they brought out the 3 jars of wine and placed them on the side. Time passed slowly like this. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Although the rainy season hadn't ended, it had lessened a lot. There would even be a short period of time every day when the sky would clear up and the rain would stop. In this village, Wang Lin was very popular. Everyone seemed to have accepted this quiet neighbor who was very forthright when he drank. They also accepted his identity as a doctor. Many elders in the village and villagers with chronic diseases had all witnessed Wang Lin's medical skills. They also accepted the exquisite wood carvings and learned of Wang Lin's identity as a carpenter outside of being a doctor. If time continued to pass and he forgot about the crisis with Tucson, the life and death of cultivation, and the deception of life, then this kind of life was something Wang Lin looked forward to. He liked this kind of peace. He liked the peaceful atmosphere of the village. However, Wang Lin understood that this kind of life was like a short sunny day during the rainy season. It would soon disappear. The cultivators of the Origins sect arrived at the northern part of the continent of Emoluo. After searching again and again, they picked out mortals with talent. There were youths and middle-aged mortals among them. As for the white-haired old man, they had looked for him, but there was no one with talent. Even if there was, given his age, there wouldn't be any results until he died. On this day, a cultivator also arrived at the Northwater Village. This cultivator looked less than 20 years old, but he was already at the foundation establishment realm. At his age, this kind of cultivation was enough for him to become an outstanding talent among the younger generation. This cultivator's attitude was cold, and the moment he arrived at the Northwater Village, the villagers trembled in fear. They all walked out of their houses and trembled in the rain. All mortals on the continent of Mo Luo knew about cultivators. They also knew that if this cultivator became angry, it would only take an instant for him to slaughter all of them. Zhao Yu frowned as he looked at all the mortals in the village. Zhao Yu frowned and looked at all the mortals in the small village in front of him. The rainwater bounced off 3 inches above his head, keeping his clothes clean. As for the villagers in front of him, they allowed the rain to soak their clothes. It stuck to their bodies and emitted a bone-chilling cold. Chungrin was still fine, but the children were trembling violently and hugging their parents tightly. They had been standing here for almost 1 incense stick of time, but the cultivator before them still hadn't spoken. The burly man who had taken in Wang Lin said in a trembling voice, "Exalted, exalted immortal, this rain is cold, and the children's bodies are weak. I'm afraid they can't withstand it." How about? His little daughter was already pale from a cold. However, before he could finish speaking, there was a flash of coldness in Zhao Yu's eyes, causing the burly man to swallow his words. Zhao Yu let out a cold snort and coldly said, "If little Xiao Yu can't withstand the cold, how can she become a cultivator?" His cold snort contained a trace of cultivation. This caused the villagers to feel as if there was thunder echoing in their ears, and their faces turned pale. Wang Lin stood in the crowd with a gloomy expression. He walked out from the crowd and walked toward Zhao Yu. Zhao Yu was startled and was about to scold him, but his eyes were filled with confusion. His gaze moved from Wang Lin to the villagers, and he calmly said, "All of you can go back." The villagers were startled, but they quickly carried their children and returned to their rooms. They didn't notice that before they left, Wang Lin casually waved his right hand. An invisible heat flowed into every villager's body and expelled all the coldness from their bodies. In the rainy night, Wang Lin walked in front and Zhao Yu followed behind. His expression was no longer confused, but it was as if he had lost his soul. The origin sex operation this time lasted for nearly a month. They took away a total of 31 mortals from the northern part of Mo Luo. 17 of them were youths, and the rest were youths. These people were all sent to the Origin Sex mountain in the eastern part of Mo Luo and settled down in the basin of the mountain range. The 4 great elders of the Origin sect attached great importance to these 31 people. They split them up and took them into their own sections. Among the 7 people chosen by the only female elder, Lu Yinfei, was Tsang Niu from the North Water Village. Chapter 1140. In the southern courtyard of the Gui Yuan sect, other than the pavilions in the basin, there were also pavilions in the southern mountain range. Especially at the top of the mountain range, in a forest that was red all year round, there was a red pavilion with many dancing phoenixes carved on it. It looked very beautiful. Lu Yinfei liked red, and almost everyone in the Origin sect knew this. Not only was the place she lived in red, but even her clothes were red. Lu Yinfei had a soft spot for red. At this moment, Lu Yinfei was wearing a red dress, and her hair was scattered. She was calmly sitting there, but her face was slightly pale. There was still a trace of sadness that couldn't dissipate in her eyes. This caused her to reveal her beauty, but also a hint of pitifulness. However, even her 3 senior brothers weren't qualified to appreciate her beauty because their cultivation levels were 1 rank lower than Lu Yinfei's. Lu Yinfei, who was at the peak of the late stage of Nirvana Scryer, was the number 1 beauty of the Origin sect. Her reputation was famous in the rank 5 region, and there were many people who had thoughts about her. However, due to her teacher's peak Nirvana cleanser cultivation, there had been no direct conflict. However, now that her teacher had died, the entire Origin sect was at its weakest. Right now, Lu Yinfei was holding a jade in her hand. This jade was completely purple, and she was mercilessly squeezing it. Even her jade-like hand had turned slightly white. Her eyes were filled with humiliation, but she could only endure it. She even wanted to crush the jade, but thinking about the consequences, the humiliation became even stronger. Taking a deep breath, she forced herself to raise her spirits. Facing the 3 female disciples who were standing respectfully in front of her, she said softly, "Let them in." Lu Yinfei had only taken 3 disciples in her life, and all 3 of them were female. The second disciple, Su Yun, had the highest cultivation level, and was half a step into the illusory stage. Although Su Yun wasn't as beautiful as her teacher, she was still very delicate and had a gentle personality. Shortly after, four pale-faced youths walked in. Their bodies were trembling, and after entering the room, they didn't even dare to breathe. They lowered their heads and were at a loss. Lu Yanfei's gaze swept past the four youths, and she softly said, "Eldest brother, third brother, each of you take two of them as disciples." These four youths' talent is very ordinary, so whether they can become spirit partner children will depend on their luck in 1 month. If they can't obtain the approval of the purple I left by teacher, then send them home. The two female disciples respectfully nodded and left with the four youths. Su Yun softly said, "Teacher, there are 3 more? They're a bit old." Lu Yanfei looked at the purple jade in her hand and mercilessly squeezed it. After pondering for a moment, she shook her head and said, "It's gone. You can take it as your disciple. Teacher still has matters to attend to, so you can leave." It wasn't until Su Yun left that Lu Yanfei's eyes became filled with killing intent. After a moment of silence, she shook her head and said, "They are gone. You can take them as disciples. Teacher still has matters to attend to, so you can leave." It wasn't until Su Yun left that killing intent appeared in Lu Yanfei's eyes. She looked like a jade rakshasa as she squeezed the jade. The humiliation in her eyes was completely replaced by killing intent. "Rudy, even if I, Lu Yanfei, die, I won't dual cultivate with you." There were 3 people waiting outside the red pavilion. Aside from Wang Lin, there were 2 youths beside him. One of them had a simple expression and was wearing simple clothes. The other was very handsome and had a hint of silver in his eyes. He was wearing blue and had a bit of a jade tree aura. Su Yun walked out of the pavilion with worry in her heart. She looked at the 3 of them, and when she saw the youth in blue, she frowned. "The 3 of you stand still. I'll take you back to the sect." Su Yun waved her jade-like hand, and a cloud appeared. It carried the 3 of them down from the mountain and toward the southern part of the sect. It didn't take long for them to arrive at an exquisite courtyard on the edge of the southern courtyard. There were many flowers and plants here, and there were a few houses. The cloud dissipated, and the youth in blue's face turned pale. His body trembled as he sat down on the ground and began to vomit. It was obvious that he had flown too fast. This was his first time flying in the sky, and he was scared out of his wits. As for the simple youth, his face was pale and his body trembled, but he didn't vomit. Wang Lin's expression was calm as his gaze fell on the plants in the courtyard. He carefully looked at them one by one. Su Yun looked at Wang Lin, and her eyes lit up. She was very puzzled by Wang Lin's calmness. When she saw his gaze fall on the herbs, she couldn't help but ask, "Do you recognize them? A part of them?" Wang Lin slowly said. He withdrew his gaze and calmly said, "I'm a doctor." Su Yun carefully looked at Wang Lin and said, "Since you know some, then you can stay here and take care of these herbs." With that, she slapped her bag of holding, and a jade appeared in her hand. After a moment of concentration, she waved it. She waved her hand, and the jade immediately flew into the distance. When the simple-looking young man saw this cultivator's divine ability, he immediately became excited. Even the blue-robed young man revealed a look of yearning. Not long after, 2 rays of sword energy closed in from the distance. They turned into 2 young cultivators. "Greetings, Master." The 2 cultivators stood in front of Su Yun and respectfully said, "Arrange a place for them to stay and give them the first 3 layers of the Qi refining chant." After Su Yun gave the order, she walked into the courtyard and turned around. She pointed at Wang Lin and said, "You come in." If this woman turned around and pointed without the coldness, it would be a bit charming. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he walked into the courtyard. He immediately smelled the fragrance of herbs, and just one breath made him feel refreshed. Although his expression was calm, he was shocked in his heart. This was because many of the herbs in this courtyard were extinct in the Alliance star system, and even the Luo Tian star system. "You will live there from now on." Su Yun pointed at the wooden house. She had been observing Wang Lin and felt that the person before her was too calm. This kind of calmness was understandable if it was a cultivator, but this Tseng Nyo didn't seem to have any spirit energy at all. This surprised her. However, she didn't think too much about it. After telling him how to take care of the herbs, she set a few more chants for qi refining before ignoring Wang Lin. She walked into the middle of the wooden house and sat down to cultivate. Right now, she was desperately cultivating. She wanted to quickly reach the corporeal yang realm so she could help her master. When she thought about the purple jade in her master's hand, Su Yun felt bitter in her heart. She knew that her master's appearance was coveted by many powerful cultivators. Now that her ancestor had died, these people were all ready to make a move. When she thought about how her 3 uncle masters didn't dare to come out, Su Yun bit her lower lip. If I still can't reach the corporeal yang realm this time, then I can only take the soul-parting death pill. Thinking about how terrifying the soul-parting death pill was, Su Yun took a deep breath. After pondering for a bit, she closed her eyes and began to cultivate. Recently, she could feel that her domain had made a breakthrough and wasn't far from the corporeal yang realm. After Su Yun left, Wang Lin faintly smiled. He looked at the herbs around him and walked toward his own wooden house. After entering, he found that this wooden house wasn't big. Aside from bed, there was also a wooden table. There was an extinguished oil lamp on the table. He stretched and laid down on the bed. He looked at the roof of the wooden house and revealed a relaxed expression. He hadn't been this relaxed in a long time. Whether it was the North Water Village or where he was right now, he felt a rare sense of relaxation and calmness in his mind. At his cultivation level, aside from cultivating, the most important thing was to comprehend the mind and laws. While lying here, Wang Lin felt calm, and he vaguely grasped some vague thoughts. True and false. Perhaps I'm in between true and false right now. Wang Lin revealed a smile and slowly closed his eyes. Not long after, the sky gradually darkened and the room became even darker. Wang Lin slowly opened his eyes. He didn't light the oil lamp, but sat down after waking up. His hands formed a seal, and he pointed at his body a few times. He let out a mouthful of foul air, and his body split into 2. His avatar, an original body, separated in the wooden house in the southern courtyard of the origin returning sect. His original body was sitting there with bones below his abdomen. His bones were completely black, and there were faint red lines intersecting within them. If someone else saw this, they would definitely gasp. His original body looked even more miserable than when he was at the Rosefinch Divine Sect. It seemed like his injuries were even more serious. In truth, when he left the Rosefinch Divine Sect to save the Azure Dragon Divine Emperor, Wang Lin had already fused with his original body. However, there was a problem with his original body. Even though he fused with his original body, he didn't have much ancient god power left. The life of an ancient god is filled with 3 trials and 7 calamities. According to 2C's memories, only after reaching 6 stars will one encounter 2 calamities of the first trial. I didn't expect the first trial to come early for me. The 2 calamities of the first trial are the flesh calamity and the bone calamity. They are indeed powerful. Wang Lin looked at his original body and silently pondered for a bit. His right hand reached out and a crack to his storage space appeared. Fist-sized blood crystals floated out. These blood crystals gave off a blood light, but they were strangely confined inside the room and didn't spread out at all. Wang Lin looked at these blood crystals and waved his right hand. The blood crystals flew toward his original body and landed on the skeleton. They gradually fused with the lower half of his body. His original body opened his eyes and sank into the ground. He disappeared from the room and continued to sink into the depths of the continent of Mo Luo. He closed his eyes and began to slowly absorb the aura from the blood crystals. Wang Lin had searched through 2C's memories about the early arrival of the 3 trials and 7 calamities of his original body. His ancient god body wasn't perfect compared to a real ancient god body. If he wanted to pass the first trial, he would need the heart blood of an ancient god. However, this was only his guess. Wang Lin wasn't sure if his original body could successfully pass the first trial's flesh calamity. Time passed in silence. The morning sun lit up outside the window, and the sound of rain falling entered Wang Lin's ears. Chapter 1141. During the rainy season on the continent of Luo, the morning air was damp. When he opened the window, the rain hit the windowsill and landed on the room. Some even landed on Wang Lin's face. This rain was very cold, but the cold rain of the morning could make one feel refreshed. Looking through the window, the rain was hazy. The herbs in the courtyard were much tougher than ordinary flowers and plants, so there was no problem with the rain. The rain flowed down the leaves and into the soil, nourishing the roots of the herbs. Waves of spiritual energy spread out from the rain. Wang Lin took a deep breath and picked up the umbrella hanging on the side of the room. After opening it, he walked out of the room. The sound of his footsteps in the mud mixed with the sound of the raindrops landing on the umbrella. This sound entered Wang Lin's ears. Feeling the existence of the origin energy, Wang Lin had a happy expression as he slowly walked forward. Suyun's cultivation hadn't ended. She was still cultivating in a room, trying to break through from the illusory yin stage to the corporeal yang stage. She didn't notice Wang Lin's departure at all. Even if she wasn't immersed in cultivation, she wouldn't know that Wang Lin had left. After arriving at the origin sect, Wang Lin didn't hide his cultivation. With his identity, hiding his cultivation was beneath him. However, if he didn't use origin energy, no one would be able to tell he was a cultivator. No one would be able to see through his cultivation. Nirvana cleanser cultivators fuse their origin energy with the world to absorb endless origin energy. As a result, as long as the origin energy in their body didn't move, the surrounding origin energy wouldn't change at all. If this was it, perhaps Liu Yanfei would have been able to see some clues. However, Wang Lin had a sliver of source origin in his body, and he had seen the third step from the heaven-defying bead. With Celestial Emperor Qin Shuang's help, he felt the third step, so he was no longer an ordinary Nirvana cleanser cultivator. There was no one on the continent of Luo that could see through his cultivation. He held an umbrella and wore a white robe as he walked out of the medicinal courtyard. He calmly walked around the Gui Yuan sect. Along the way, he met a few disciples of the Gui Yuan sect. However, they came and went in a hurry, so they passed by each other without disturbing each other. Following the southern courtyard, Wang Lin walked up the mountain range. He didn't use any divine abilities, just his fleshly body. He climbed up the mountain steps and walked step by step to the peak. At the top of the mountain range, the mountain wind was very strong, blowing the rain down. Looking ahead, the dark clouds rolled in the horizon, and there were even bursts of lightning streaking across the sky. The muffled sound of thunder could be heard. Breathing in the wet air, looking at the magnificent scenery in the distance, feeling the power of the world, Wang Lin's heart was calm. If it weren't for the uninvited guest behind him, he would have enjoyed this feeling. In a place where no one knew him, in a strange world, alone, tasting the taste of rain. "Who are you?" A cold voice came from behind him. Wang Lin's expression was the same as usual. He turned around and saw a woman standing behind him. This woman was dressed in red, like a red cloud. Her black hair spread out, and the black and red contrasted with her pale face, making her look exceptionally beautiful. This woman was delicate and beautiful, but on this rainy day, in this world where thunder roared, there was a deep sense of loneliness and helplessness. The faint, pitiful expression on her face was clearly seen by Wang Lin. "My name is Tsing, Wang Lin said calmly. The woman in red glanced coldly at Wang Lin and frowned. The name Tsing was very unfamiliar to her. If it weren't for the fact that she saw that Wang Lin was only an ordinary person, she would have chased him off the mountain. Tsing, the woman in red, remembered that among the 31 ordinary people she brought back from the north, there seemed to be one named Tsing. However, the person before her was too calm, and this calmness was definitely not an act. "Leave this place," the woman said coldly. She was, after all, a powerful cultivator. Naturally, she would not bicker with a mortal. Even though she was frustrated, she still maintained her calm. Wang Lin smiled and turned to walk past the woman in red. He followed the mountain path and was about to leave. The woman in red turned to look at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's calmness surprised her. It had to be known that in the entire Gui Yuan sect, other than the master in the sinkhole, Any disciple would be extremely nervous and respectful when they saw her. Even her 3 senior brothers would be respectful when they met because their cultivation was one level lower than hers. Not to mention mortals, but the man in front of him was strangely calm. The woman in red's gaze was like lightning as she stared at Wang Lin's back. It was as if she could see through him. After carefully examining him, she finally determined that the person in front of her was only an ordinary person. After letting out a sigh, the woman in red softly said, "Wait a minute. Are you willing to listen to me?" Liu Yinfei's status in the Origin sect was very high, and if she wanted to talk to people, they would be very respectful. Also, there were some things that she couldn't talk about due to her status. The young man before her had no cultivation at all and was only a mortal. In Liu Yinfei's eyes, the two of them were like heaven and earth. More importantly, the calmness of the young man seemed to have some kind of infectious power that caused Liu Yinfei's mind to unknowingly calm down. She just wanted to find someone who could listen to her. At this moment, on this rainy morning, on this mountain, there were only the two of them. Wang Lin thought for a bit and didn't leave. He stood at the top of the mountain and nodded as he looked at the dark clouds in the distance. The mountain wind blew by with the rain. Aside from the sound of the wind and rain, everything was calm. When I, San, was accepted as a disciple by teacher and began my path of cultivation, Liu Yinfei's calm voice was filled with reminiscence as it slowly drifted away into the rain and disappeared with the wind. When I reached the ascendant stage, teacher didn't hesitate to use a large amount of the sect herbs and even went to other sects to personally refine a heaven-deceiving pill for me, so I could reach the ascendant stage. I still remember that year when teacher took me to hunt in the star fog. It took him 3 years to finally catch a 6-eyed red fox, and it became my life spirit beast. Liu Yinfei spoke bitterly. She didn't care if Wang Lin could understand her or not. She didn't even look at Wang Lin. She just looked at the sky as if she was talking to herself. Teacher has died. From now on, I will never see him again. Liu Yinfei muttered a lot. Wang Lin calmly listened on the side and didn't say a word. Time gradually passed, and in the blink of an eye, it was afternoon. The rain in the sky gradually lessened until it finally stopped. The dark clouds in the distance also disappeared. The sky was clear, and a gorgeous rainbow hung in the sky. It was an indescribably beautiful sight. The Purple Tao sect harmed teacher. After teacher died, their junior sect master sent me a jade to dual cultivate with him. If I didn't agree, they would take advantage of the fact that the Origin sect strength was greatly reduced to report to the main sect and declare war on my Origin sect. The main sect has always been biased. If the Purple Tao sect really asked for it, there is an 80% chance they would agree. Liu Yinfei bit her lower lip and revealed a bitter expression. It's laughable that my 3 senior brothers didn't dare to come out and acquiesced. They wanted to sacrifice me for the safety of the Origin sect, but they were short-sighted. Did they really think that after I followed Liu Hai, the Origin sect would really be safe? 2 streams of tears flowed down Liu Yinfei's cheeks and fell to the ground. The tears merged with the rain on the ground. She silently looked at the rainbow in the sky and muttered, "There is a rainbow after the wind and rain, but the rainbow of my Origin sect is bleak." Wang Lin's expression was calm. Seeing that the woman in red seemed to have no intention of continuing, he turned around and walked down the mountain. This time, the woman in red didn't try to stop him. She silently looked at the sky, and after a long time, her face was filled with determination and killing intent. She looked back at the direction Wang Lin went. This person's heart is as firm as mine. If he were to embark on the path of Tao, he would have great achievements in the future. Unfortunately, as he walked down the mountain, Wang Lin walked into the southern courtyard with an umbrella. Su Yin was still cultivating. Wang Lin returned to his room, and his eyes shined brightly. From Zhao Yu's memories, I know that the Cloud Sea Star system is very different from the Rain and Thunder Celestial realms. Today, from what the Origin sect elder said, the Cloud Sea Star system focuses on cultivating spirit beasts. They also have unique alchemy skills. The vast sea of stars is filled with fog, and inside the fog is a world that belongs to spirit beasts. Wang Lin began to ponder. especially when he thought about what the Origin Sect elder had said. There were pills that could help one reach the ascended stage. Heaven-deceiving pill. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a look of interest. He still couldn't forget when he reached the ascended stage. If not for Zhou Yi's ascendant crystal, he would have been burned to ashes by the origin fire. Those who seek Tao are born in the morning and die in the evening. The Cloud Sea Star system actually has pills that can help one pass the first life and death trial of cultivation. It can be seen that the Cloud Sea Star system's alchemy skills have reached a peak. I fear that even the second step of cultivation has pills that can help one or two people. However, cultivators focus on comprehending their domain, and alchemy is an unorthodox method. Why would the Cloud Sea Star system develop alchemy like this? Wang Lin frowned slightly, but his frown soon relaxed. Could it be that there are pills that can help one comprehend their domain? Thinking about this, Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat, and he took a deep breath. Right at this moment, his expression suddenly changed. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the room he was in, and it landed directly on Su Yun's body. At this moment, Su Yun opened her eyes and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Her face was pale. She had failed to reach the corporeal yang stage once more. This failure had injured her origin soul. Su Yun bit her lower lip and revealed a decisive gaze. She slapped her bag of holding, and a wax pill appeared in her hand. Without any hesitation, he crushed the wax pill, revealing a black pill within. The instant the pill appeared, a dense wave of natural energy immediately radiated from it. There was also a faint trace of strange soul force within it. Soul-parting death pill. Su Yun clenched her teeth and was about to swallow the pill. However, at this moment, she suddenly heard a calm voice. Stop. Chapter 1142. This voice seemed to come from the heavens and earth. It was ethereal, like it was right next to her ear, but also like it was far away. However, if one listened carefully, they would find that it was coming from her mind. It was a very simple word, a very calm voice, but when it entered Su Yun's mind, it caused her body to tremble. It was as if the world around her was collapsing. Unimaginable threads wrapped around her, causing her body, her origin spirit, and even her origin energy to freeze in that instant. Even her thoughts couldn't move. It was like she was stuck in the world of her previous life. Wang Lin's figure appeared in front of Su Yun. Su Yun, who was sitting cross-legged, was very eye-catching. There was a fragrance coming from Su Yun's body in the room. Her expression was still as determined as before, and she didn't move at all. Taking the black pill from Su Yun's hand, Wang Lin carefully looked at it. The color of this pill seemed to be the source of all darkness in the world. Just looking at it would make one's mind feel like it could be sucked away. What a strange pill, Wang Lin muttered to himself. His divine sense swept over the pill, and a calculating light appeared in his eyes. Wang Lin's understanding of pills was far weaker than his understanding of restrictions, but his cultivation was heaven-defying. His divine sense spread out, and he was able to analyze the structure of the ingredients inside. It was just that he didn't recognize most of them. More importantly, he could feel a soul fluctuation coming from the pill. Interesting. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He looked at the pill again to make sure his senses weren't wrong. There was indeed a soul fluctuation coming from the pill. Although it wasn't strong, it was extremely tenacious. Closing his eyes, Wang Lin had a feeling that what he was holding wasn't a pill, but the soul of a fierce beast. The appearance of this soul was that of an ape. It was extremely tyrannical as it struggled frantically in his hand. However, there were too many seals on the body of this ape, causing it to be unable to struggle free at all. Opening his eyes, all the illusions disappeared. Wang Lin placed the pill back between Su Yun's fingers, took a few steps back, and pointed forward with his right hand. The invisible threads around Su Yun's body immediately dissipated, and Su Yun's body trembled before returning to normal. All of this happened in an instant, as if her previous life had overlapped with her current one. Wang Lin's cultivation level was far higher than hers, so under the stop spell, Su Yun wasn't even qualified to notice the abnormality. She maintained her previous action and swallowed the pill with a determined gaze. Wang Lin stood behind her and looked at her calmly. Suyin didn't notice that there was someone behind her at all. After swallowing the pill, her face immediately became red, revealing a faint expression of pain. Fragrant sweat appeared on her forehead, and her clothes were soon soaked in sweat and stuck to her body. From behind, Wang Lin could clearly see the graceful curves of the back of the woman sitting cross-legged in front of him. Suyun's face became redder and redder, and she closed her eyes. She could clearly feel a fire burning inside her body. The flames burned her primordial spirit. Gradually, a golden-eyed black ape appeared in her mind. This golden-eyed black ape was huge and filled with ferocity. It roared angrily in her mind and charged at her primordial spirit. Suyun's mind was also filled with flames. Her origin soul had already been injured, so it was very painful inside the flames. However, she didn't retreat and continued to fight with the golden-eyed black ape. Her mind was like a battlefield, and it was a life and death battle between her origin soul and the black ape. The black ape roared as if it wanted to tear her origin soul and body apart. It no longer had to endure the flames and wanted to escape. However, Su Yun's origin soul was tightly entangled with the black ape. She allowed the flames to burn her, but at the same time, she was refining the black ape. It was as if she wouldn't give up until she refined the black ape. However, the black ape was extremely powerful, so the rate at which Su Yun's soul was being refined was slower than the rate at which Su Yun's origin soul was being burned. As a result, Su Yun's origin soul was gradually being pushed back. Her face was completely red, and she began to tremble. The soul-parting death pill only left a sliver of life after swallowing it. Suyun knew this very well. If it wasn't for the fact that she was anxious to make a breakthrough so she could help her teacher, she wouldn't have swallowed this pill so easily. Her teacher had helped her greatly, and she was willing to do anything for her teacher. Her origin soul had been forced into a dead end by the black ape. The black ape had only refined a small portion of its body, and it was about to tear Su Yun's origin soul apart. Just at this moment, Wang Lin raised his right hand. He wanted to carefully observe how the pill worked. If Su Yun failed, he wouldn't have the chance to observe. Forget it. I'll give this girl a good fortune. Wang Lin shook his head and pointed at Su Yun's head. Wang Lin's divine sense suddenly moved and directly entered Su Yun's mind. Su Yun's origin soul continued to retreat and revealed a hint of despair. Just as the black ape was about to pounce on her, a figure in white suddenly walked into her mind. She couldn't see the appearance of this figure in white. She could only see his white hair fluttering in the wind. She didn't even have time to be shocked at why this person in white had appeared in her mind. Su Yun's origin soul trembled, and she looked ahead in disbelief. After the white-haired figure appeared, he casually pointed with his right hand. Immediately, the black ape let out a miserable cry and quickly retreated. Popping sounds rang out from within the black ape's body, and its body suddenly collapsed. It was devoured by the exploding flames in the surroundings and refined at a crazy rate. Su Yun was dumbfounded. The grace of that finger caused her to be shocked. She was unable to describe that finger. She only felt that at that moment, that finger seemed to have replaced all of her thoughts. It was enough to shake the heavens and earth. Under that finger, it was as if the heavens and earth would tremble and the sky would collapse. She had seen her teacher, Lu Yinfei, use spells, but at this moment, she clearly knew that not even her teacher could use such a heaven-shaking finger. Even her teacher would be defeated and die before this finger. She had even seen her grandmaster, who had already returned to dust, cast his divine abilities. However, in her opinion, even her grandmaster would find it difficult to cast such a divine ability, especially the casual movements of the white-haired man. He seemed to be careless, but his actions had shaken her mind. The white-haired person seemed to turn around to look at Su Yun. With one step, he left her mind and disappeared. The only thing that remained in Su Yun's mind was the white hair that was clearly imprinted in her heart. The black ape was refined by the flames in her mind and turned into a strange soul force. At this moment, it entered Su Yun's origin soul like crazy. This made it so that she could no longer think about the white hair in her mind. As she continued to absorb the soul force, Su Yun seemed to enter a strange state similar to the Sure realm. In this strange state, his understanding of the Tao and his understanding of the heaven and earth came from the soul force and merged with his mind. The black ape was not an ordinary fierce beast, but a spirit beast unique to the Cloud Sea. This spirit beast cultivated Tao like humans and also had comprehension of the world. With the advantage of its long lifespan, its comprehension of the world was much deeper than that of cultivators. This black ape had lived for more than 3,000 years. After taking its soul and combining it with alchemy, Su Yun was able to refine a soul-parting death pill. After an unknown amount of time, Su Yun slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes shined brightly and a sliver of corporeal yang aura surrounded her body. Although she hadn't reached the corporeal yang stage yet, she had opened the door to the corporeal yang stage. Once she fully comprehended everything, she would become a true corporeal yang cultivator. Su Yun suddenly turned her head around, but she couldn't see anyone. She was the only one in the room. However, she couldn't forget that graceful finger under that head of white hair. After pondering for a while, Su Yun's expression dimmed. She stared blankly ahead and couldn't get rid of the white hair in her mind. She felt like she wasn't a cultivator, but a woman. She felt like she had seen this figure before. Was it an illusion? White hair. White hair. Su Yun's eyes gradually lit up again. She thought back to what her master had said when her grandmaster used the spirit-choosing spell before he died. North. White hair. Su Yun's full chest heaved up and down. She immediately walked out of the house and charged toward her teacher's palace in the southern mountain range. Wang Lin stood next to the window and looked at the ray of light disappearing into the night sky. His eyes were filled with enlightenment. I didn't expect this kind of pill to exist in the Cloud Sea. Doesn't this mean that the more powerful a spirit beast is, the more helpful its soul is in comprehending one's domain? This is completely different from the thunder and rain star system. While pondering, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed. He remembered the soul that Moj had given him back at the Vermilion Bird Divine sect. At this moment, in the rank 5 region of the Cloud Sea, in a dense fog not far from the continent of Mo Luo, there was a tadpole-like black beast that was about 1,000 feet long, slowly flying through the fog. The huge head of this vicious beast occupied more than half of its body. Its scar-like mouth would open from time to time, as if it was swallowing the starry mist, revealing ghastly teeth and bloodthirsty flames. Its slender tail behind it was slowly swaying. There were 2 people standing on its head. The one in front was a handsome young man wearing a purple robe, but there was an evil aura around him that made him look very tyrannical. Behind the young man was an old man. He respectfully stood there with a calm expression, but he would occasionally look at the young man with doting eyes. Not only do I want Lu Yinfei to become a concubine cultivation furnace, I also want the Origin sect to become my palace. Uncle Song, how confident are you? If that old Taoist hadn't died, the old man wouldn't have any confidence, but now I'm 100% confident. The old man's tone was calm, but there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. The young man laughed and licked his lips. It was unknown what he was thinking, but his face revealed an obscene expression. Chapter 1143. The rainy season lasted for several months, and it seemed as if it would never end. It never stopped, and the patter of raindrops and the dark clouds that filled the sky always pressed down on the hearts of the Gue Yuan sect disciples, and they were powerless to disperse it. In the blink of an eye, Wang Lin had been in the Origin sect for 10 days. Su Yun had long returned from her teacher's place. She had secretly investigated the 31 mortals from the north, but in the end, she found nothing. As for Wang Lin, she had also observed him, but she didn't find anything. Even her teacher, Lu Yinfei, placed great importance on this matter. She personally used spells to try to find some clues, but the result was the same. The white-haired figure in Su Yun's heart didn't dissipate over time. Instead, it became more and more profound. Sometimes, When she woke up in the middle of the night, the white-haired figure and that graceful finger would appear before her eyes. Who the hell is he? This question had been bothering Su-Yun. On this afternoon, Su-Yun opened the door to her room. The rain splashed on the roof, and a few drops landed on her face. She frowned and raised her jade-like hand to wipe the raindrops off her face. She looked delicate and charming as she walked out. The rain seemed to fall on an invisible barrier when it was 5 feet away from her and flowed down. While walking in the yard, Su-Yun looked at the various herbs around her. She suddenly raised her head and looked at the house Wang Lin was in. The first person she suspected was Wang Lin. However, during these past few days, this young man, named Sung Nyo, was like a real mortal, aside from his calmness. Su-Yun didn't know why, but she subconsciously walked toward Wang Lin's house. She stood outside for a while before she opened the door. "I'll let you come here to take care of the herbs. Have you done it once in the past few days?" Su-Yun stared at Wang Lin, who was reading a wooden scroll. She didn't know why, but whenever she saw Wang Lin, her emotions fluctuated. She no longer had the calmness of an illusory cultivator. Wang Lin put down the wooden scroll that he took from the Gui Yuan sect's ancient records pavilion. This wooden scroll wasn't an expensive one, but any new disciple could borrow it to read. It contained the history of the continent of Mo Luo and a brief introduction of the Cloud Sea Star system. These wooden slips were meant for the new disciples to better understand the cultivation world and the Cloud Sea. This way, they would understand the principle that there would always be someone better than you, and that they would work even harder on their cultivation. While looking at the wooden slip, Wang Lin did not completely focus on it. Instead, he was thinking about alchemy and spirit beasts. Wang Lin calmly glanced at Su-Yun and slowly said, "Has any herb died?" Sun-Yun was stunned. This period of time, the herbs were even more verdant than before. Even some of the roots that had been prepared to give up before had surprisingly survived in this period of time. Wang Lin no longer spoke as he picked up the wooden slip and continued to read. The more he acted like this, the more Su-Yun frowned. She walked into the room, and a fragrance immediately filled the small room. Wang Lin was naturally familiar with this fragrance. When Su-Yun was cultivating, he had smelled this fragrance. Su-Yun stared at Wang Lin and coldly said, "It has nothing to do with you that those herbs didn't die. It is because this place is rich in spiritual energy, and most of the herbs are aquatic, so they can absorb origin energy from the rain during the rainy season." "Oh." Wang Lin casually nodded and didn't even look at Su-Yun. He flipped through the wooden slips in his hand and continued to read. "Sun Yo." Seeing Wang Lin's attitude, Su-Yun's eyes widened. Wang Lin frowned. He put down the wooden slip once more and coldly looked at Su-Yun. Su-Yun was full of words and was about to reprimand him, but when she suddenly met Wang Lin's gaze, she subconsciously swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth and was startled. "My job is to not let these herbs die. If there is nothing else, please don't disturb me." Wang Lin's voice was calm. After he finished speaking, he didn't look at Su-Yun again and picked up the wooden slip. Under Wang Lin's gaze, Su-Yun's heart trembled for no reason. "Is it him?" Su-Yun was silent for a moment. She looked deeply at Wang Lin, bit her lower lip, and turned to leave the room. Late at night, an oil lamp was lit on the table. Outside the window, it was completely dark. Only the sound of rain, mixed with the rumbling of thunder, could be heard. The wind blew from a mountain range and landed on the Gui Yuan sect in the basin, forming a series of whirlpools, and a faint whimper could be heard. Wang Lin put down the wooden slip in his hand, closed his eyes, and pondered for a bit. He was able to glean quite a few things from the wooden slip's general introduction. He also had a somewhat unclear understanding of the Cloud Sea. More importantly, he had gained some insight into alchemy through the jade slip he had read 4 days ago. Wang Lin opened his eyes and raised his head. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the room and rush into the sky. It seemed like it could pierce through the rain and lightning as it looked directly at the sky above the Gui Yuan sect. It was the Taoist temple that was suspended in the air by 8 huge stone pillars. Inside the Taoist temple, Wang Lin could clearly feel that there was a powerful aura surrounding it. His body flickered and he disappeared from the room. When he reappeared, he was on top of one of the stone pillars, outside the Taoist temple. At this location, the wind and rain were extremely strong, and there was even the rumbling of thunder. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he pushed open the door of the Taoist temple and walked in. This Taoist temple wasn't big. Aside from a few decorations, the most eye-catching thing was the giant spatial crack in the center. A purple light came out from the crack and covered the entire Taoist temple in a purple light. Behind the spatial crack was a shelf with fluctuations of restrictions on it. There were 3 items on the shelf: a long sword, a jade slip, and a pill. The moment Wang Lin stepped into the Taoist temple, the purple light from the spatial crack became even denser. A giant python's head popped out from the crack and stared at Wang Lin. This python's body was purple and black, and its eyes were purple. Anyone who was looked at by this gaze would feel their mind tremble, but it had no effect on Wang Lin. Without even looking at the purple-eyed python, Wang Lin walked past it. The purple-eyed python let out a roar, but its eyes were filled with fear. It quickly retreated and allowed Wang Lin to walk past it, but it didn't attack. In truth, Wang Lin had already come here 4 days ago. If this purple-eyed python was at the Nirvana Scryer stage, it could fight against a late-stage Nirvana Scryer cultivator. However, in Wang Lin's eyes, it was very easy to kill it. There wasn't much fluctuation at all. He had almost killed this purple-eyed python 4 days ago, but considering that he would be staying at the Origin sect for a while, it wouldn't be right to kill this sect spirit beast the moment he arrived. That was why he had spared this purple-eyed python's life. After arriving next to the shelf, he waved his right hand, and all the restrictions on it disappeared. Wang Lin picked up the jade and began to read it once more. He had already read the jade 4 days ago. Wang Lin wasn't interested in the cultivation methods of the Origin sect, but he was interested in the description of spirit beasts and alchemy. After carefully reading it once more, Wang Lin began to ponder. He put down the jade and picked up the pill. This pill looked very ordinary. When he first saw it 4 days ago, he didn't notice anything wrong with it. After 4 days of pondering the pill concocting instructions in the jade slip, he had come all the way here for the sake of this medicinal pill. According to the jade, the spirit beasts in the Cloud Sea have a rank of sure sand. Pills refined with the soul of spirit beasts are also divided into ranks of sure sand. This is a rank 8 soul-parting pill that the Origin sect ancestor left behind. Unfortunately, this is a trash pill without the soul of a rank 8 spirit beast. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a look of pity. After studying the contents of a jade for a few days, he had gradually grasped some of the details of alchemy in the Cloud Sea. He had come here again to verify if his guess was correct. Looking at the pill in his hand, he was certain. After letting out a sigh, Wang Lin put down the pill. He didn't take these 3 things that were obviously left behind by the Origin sect ancestor. With Wang Lin's cultivation level, it was beneath him to do something that would destroy the sect. He only needed to look at it to know. Right now, I need to personally refine this pill using the method of alchemy in the Cloud Sea. My goal in the Cloud Sea is to increase my cultivation level as much as possible. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he made up his mind. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly looked up, and his eyes revealed a strange light. On the western edge of the continent of Luo, there were flashes of lightning in the sky. Muffled rumbles echoed, as if someone was bombarding the continent from the outside. The continent of Luo floated in the Cloud Sea, and there was a black tower that gave off a soft light that shrouded the entire continent. Aside from pushing back the fog a bit, the black tower also had a certain protective effect. It not only protected the outer sect cultivators, but also the countless fierce beasts in the Cloud Sea. In the Cloud Sea, beasts were divided into 2 types. Those that were tamed by cultivators were called spirit beasts, and those that roamed the fog and fought cultivators to the death were called fierce beasts. At this moment, the protective light of the Black Tower on the western side of the continent of Luo continued to distort and finally collapsed with an earth-shattering rumble. The thunderous rumble suppressed the sound of thunder and all the rain. It echoed across the continent of Luo and clearly entered the origin sect. A giant, black, tadpole-like spirit beast that was 1,000 feet tall slowly squeezed into the continent of Mo as lightning flashed. If it was just this spirit beast, it wouldn't be able to break the protection of the continent of Mo. However, on its back, the arrogant old man slowly withdrew his right hand. There was a purple wind around his right hand. Chapter 1144. Laughter echoed across the sky. Aside from the old man, there was also a young man in purple on the back of the spirit beast. The young man's laughter echoed across the world, and it was filled with excitement and arrogance. From now on, the origin sect belongs to this young master. Thunderous rumbles echoed as the giant, black spirit beast entered the continent of Mo. The old man, standing on its head, looked at the young man dotingly and revealed a smile. As the young man laughed, the black spirit beast charged forward at an unimaginable speed toward the origin sect in the eastern part of the continent of Mo. The Purple Dao sect's young master is here. Origin sect, quickly greet him. An old and gloomy voice spread out as the black spirit beast charged forward. It spread across the continent of Mo and was clearly heard by the only cultivation sect on the continent, the origin sect. The old man knew that the young master was arrogant and domineering. If it was before, the old man wouldn't be like this, but right now the life and death of the origin sect was under his control. Therefore, he would follow the young master's personality and accompany him in being arrogant. The old man waved the purple wind in his right hand, and it turned into a hurricane that swept across the world. All the rain that was falling was pushed back. It was as if the rain had to stop wherever the hurricane passed by. Even the thunder and lightning that whizzed by were instantly torn apart by the hurricane, turning into arcs of electricity that spread out. From afar, it looked like a blooming flower. At this moment, all the disciples of the origin sect awakened from their cultivation. Their faces were pale, and they could clearly feel a powerful pressure coming from the west. It felt like it could crush them at any moment. On the peak of the eastern mountain range of the Yuan sect, the middle-aged man of the four great elders had a bitter expression on his face as he silently closed his eyes. However, he quickly opened them, and his body turned into a ray of light as he flew towards the west. Teacher has just left this world, and the Purple Dao sect is already so arrogant. I've endured for so long, but I Li Xiangdong will also be arrogant for once. Even if I die, I'll die with an indomitable spirit. A sigh came from a northwest mountain, and the two old men slowly flew out. They clenched their teeth and looked at each other before immediately flying west. This was a moment of life and death for the Yuan sect. They could no longer endure it. However, even if they couldn't bear it, what could they do? The Purple Dao sect was powerful. Would they dare to kill their young master? Furthermore, the cultivation contained in that ancient voice was enough to shake the hearts of the Yuan sect. Song Wuda, teacher lost him back then, but now that teacher is dead, this Song Wuda has personally come. Could it be that my origin sect is really facing a calamity and will never recover? Inside the red pavilion at the top of the southern mountain range, Lu Yanfei was dressed in red. Her face was filled with bitterness and killing intent as she charged toward the west without any hesitation. Rudy, Lu Yanfei, would rather die than submit to you. Lu Yanfei bit her lower lip as she charged forward. Crystal tears fell from the corners of her eyes and fused with the world. It was impossible to tell if it was rain or tears. Behind the four elders of the origin sect were their direct disciples. They all had looks of panic, determination, or anger as they flew toward the west. Su Yun was among them, and her eyes were filled with the determination to die. However, for some unknown reason, as she flew against the wind and rain, two figures appeared in her mind. One figure had black hair and was thin. He didn't look handsome, but he was still as calm as water. The other figure had white hair and white clothes. With a wave of his finger, the world collapsed. These two figures circled around in her mind and finally overlapped with each other. Wang Lin stood inside the Taoist temple and looked at the rays of light that gradually disappeared before him. He shook his head and calmly analyzed what he would do if the origin sect was destroyed. In the end, he frowned and muttered, "Really troublesome." He waved his sleeves and stepped forward. Ripples echoed under his feet, and he disappeared from the Taoist temple. The purple-eyed python that had almost completely retreated into the crack and had been roaring ever since Wang Lin appeared, but its heart was trembling in fear. At this moment, it rushed out and let out a roar toward where Wang Lin disappeared. It was as if it knew that Wang Lin had left and wouldn't return for a while, which was why it dared to roar. The night of the continent of Luo was about to pass, and the sky was starting to clear up. In the western part of the continent, the purple wind howled. Behind the purple wind, the giant black spirit beast charged toward the east. The old man on the spirit beast had an arrogant and calm expression. He was confident in taking over the origin sect. The purple-robed youth beside him was filled with excitement and gave off a silver light. "Uncle Song, just seriously injure that Lu Yinfei, but don't kill her by accident. Let this little lord play with her for a few days and suck dry her originine. It won't be too late to kill her then." The purple-robed youth licked his lips. The old man beside him nodded and was about to speak when he was startled and stared ahead. He saw a ripple appear in the void before him, and a powerful force of the world spread out. A white-haired man slowly walked out from the ripple. The white-haired man's expression was cold, and the moment he appeared, a monstrous killing intent appeared. The black spirit beast immediately stopped, and the old man's expression changed. The purple-robed youth frowned and was about to scold when the old man appeared before him. He stared at Wang Lin with a serious expression and said, "I'm the purple Dao sect Song Wuda. Can fellow cultivator give me some face and let me pass?" After hearing the old man's words, the purple-robed youth was startled and carefully looked at Wang Lin. "I'll give you some face. Immediately scram from here and never take another step inside." Wang Lin's voice was cold. It was like a bone-chilling wind that blew on the old man's body. The old man's expression suddenly became gloomy. Although his cultivation level couldn't compare to the origin sect's ancestor, he was still at the mid-stage of Nirvana Cleanser. However, he couldn't see through this person's cultivation level. That was why he was being polite, but he didn't expect this person to be so arrogant. What arrogance! Even the origin sect's ancestor. Before the old man could speak, the purple-robed youth behind him laughed. Wang Lin didn't speak anymore. There was a flash of coldness in his eyes, and he stepped forward. He raised his right hand, and strands of slaughter energy rushed out from Wang Lin's body. At this moment, the slaughter energy was monstrous. The dense killing intent contained an unimaginable coldness, causing the surrounding rainwater to immediately turn into ice crystals with crackling sounds. The 1,000-foot-tall black spirit beast trembled. It was very intelligent and immediately felt the danger from the slaughter energy. It trembled and quickly retreated without waiting for the purple-robed youth's order. The purple-robed youth's face instantly turned pale, but he still shouted, "You." However, this time, before he could finish speaking, the old man immediately slapped the purple-robed young man onto the back of the black spiritual beast. With a flick of his sleeve, the old man swept the black spiritual beast away in a frantic retreat. "Quickly leave. I'll kill this person and then meet up with you." The old man's expression was extremely serious. After he pushed back the black spirit beast, he charged at Wang Lin. The purple-robed youth rarely saw the old man like this. At this moment, panic appeared in his heart, and he quickly retreated with the black spirit beast. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and the slaughter energy around him suddenly became crazy. It charged toward the old man from all directions. The old man's pupils shrank, and his hands formed a seal. Suddenly, a purple wind appeared and collided with the slaughter energy. A thunderous rumble echoed out. "Summon the rain." Wang Lin raised his left hand and pointed at the sky. With him, as the center, all of the rain in a radius of 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 100,000 feet paused for a moment. As Wang Lin pointed, the rain trembled and was surrounded by the power of heaven and earth. It charged toward the old man like crazy. The old man was so shocked that he couldn't find words to describe it. The two divine abilities the white-haired cultivator had used were things he had never even heard of before, but the power of those two divine abilities made him gasp. Just as he was about to dodge, Wang Lin's gaze became cold, and he calmly said one word. "Stop!" In an instant, the old man's body trembled, and he stopped in midair. In an instant, countless ice crystals whistled in all directions and gathered around the old man. In the blink of an eye, a huge ice crystal appeared in midair. Wang Lin didn't stop. His right hand reached out, and a crack to his storage space appeared. A rusty sword appeared in Wang Lin's hand. His body moved with the sword, and he mercilessly slashed forward. At this moment, the world was still in a hazy state. However, the moment the sword fell, the entire world was shrouded by a flash of light. With a deafening boom, the huge ice crystal collapsed, revealing a blood-red color. The old man's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief as his body was torn apart. Even his origin soul was shattered, turning into a shockwave of origin energy that spread in all directions. All of this happened in just a few breaths of time. Instant kill. Even when the old man died, he still couldn't believe that his origin soul had been destroyed in such a short period of time. He didn't die in vain. Whether it was the slaughter energy or summon the rain, they were enough for a person to shake the cultivation world. Adding on the blow from the pseudo-nirvana void sword, even a late-stage nirvana cleanser cultivator would lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. Not to mention Wang Lin's rich experience. Song Wuda didn't die in vain. After instantly killing Song Wuda, Wang Lin turned to look at the black spirit beast that hadn't yet escaped and the purple-robed young man who had witnessed all of this and screamed in fear. Coldly looking at the purple-robed young man, Wang Lin took a step forward. Rays of light closed in from the distance behind him. The purple-robed young man's scream of extreme fear clearly entered the ears of the four elders of the Origin sect and also entered Lu Yinfei's mind. In an instant, the sky cleared up and the rain dissipated. A vague rainbow hung in the sky. The white hair of the figure chasing after the black spirit beast was so dazzling that it was deeply imprinted in Lu Yinfei's eyes. I think today's writing was very good. If you feel the same, then vote for me. Chapter 1145. Under the Rainbow. The fluttering white hair was like an eternal scene that was fixed in the eyes of the four elders of the Gui Yuan sect who had rushed over. The smell of blood permeated the air, and the ripples of Yuanli caused by the collapse of the primordial spirit clearly told them that an earth-shattering battle had taken place here. In particular, that stunning light from before. Although it only lasted for a moment, it had taken the life of a nirvana cleanser cultivator that the four of them had decided to fight to the death. This scene caused the four of them to be completely dumbfounded. Before them, they only saw the back of the white-haired person. Although he looked slow, he moved like lightning toward the purple-robed young man on the black spirit beast. The purple-robed young man's scream echoed. It contained the extreme fear in his heart. Although Rudy was only at the illusory stage, his status was noble, so he had never encountered such a crisis before. He originally thought it would be an easy trip to have fun. He originally thought he would have the protection of Song Wuda, who had a high cultivation level. He originally thought he could use his identity as the junior sectmaster of the Purple Dao sect to dominate the rank 5 region. Even in his wildest dreams, he still could not believe that Song Wuda had been killed by the white-haired young man in an instant. Even his origin soul could not escape. In his eyes, the white-haired young man had become the most terrifying beast in the world. The figure that walked over caused the purple-robed young man's scream to become even more mournful. I'm the junior sectmaster of the Purple Dao sect. If you kill me, my father, Lu Yunsong, will slaughter the entire continent of Mo Luo. He was afraid, fear he had never felt before. The white-haired figure got closer and closer until it replaced everything in his eyes. The black spirit beast under him trembled and quickly retreated. This spirit beast's spirit sense had been activated, and its fear of Wang Lin was almost the same as its master, the purple-robed young man. If you dare to hurt me at all, My purple Tao sect will chase you down to the heavens." When the purple-robed young man's fear reached a limit, he let out a heart-wrenching roar, as if he had gone crazy. His right hand slapped his bag of holding, and a black lotus appeared in his hand. This lotus was completely black and bloomed in a demonic manner. It gave off a black glow that shrouded the purple-robed young man's twisted face. Just as he was about to activate the life-saving magical treasure that his father had given him, a finger suddenly appeared in front of him. It seemed to be moving slowly, but in reality, it was a finger that landed on the center of his eyebrows. Bang! The purple-clothed young man spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were glazed over and bloodshot, and there were even 2 streams of blood flowing down from his eyes. His body was thrown back like a kite with a broken string, and banging sounds shook the heavens and the earth. Large expanses of blood mist sprayed out from his body, dyeing the ground red. It was a ghastly sight. His origin soul collapsed, and he could vaguely hear his own heart pounding. His body felt like it was floating in the clouds, but it was getting weaker and weaker. The pounding of his heart became softer and softer, as if it was in a different world from his. Gradually, he could no longer hear it. At this moment, behind the 4 elders of the Gui Yuan sect, the direct disciples of the Gui Yuan sect, had already rushed over. The last scene that these disciples saw was the bloody man being thrown out of the black spiritual beast's body in a blood-colored arc. With a loud bang, the bloody man turned into minced meat and fell down like a rain of blood. In the blood mist, under the rainbow, the white-haired figure was deeply engraved in their hearts. Su Yin stared at the figure before her, and her body trembled. She bit her lower lip, and her eyes revealed a strange light. Ludi was dead. His body had collapsed, and his nascent soul had dispersed into the world just like Uncle Song. There was a blooming black lotus and a bag of holding in Wang Lin's right hand. If the person Ludi was threatening wasn't Wang Lin, but a local cultivator of the rank 5 region, then it would have been of some use. In particular, sects weaker than the Purple Tao sect would have hesitated no matter how impulsive they were. In the end, they would only capture but not kill. After all, the Purple Tao sect was very famous in the rank 5 region and could enter the top 10. More importantly, the name Lu Yunsong was very famous. This person's talent was extremely high, and even in the rank 5 region, he was extremely famous. However, all of these threats were useless against Wang Lin. A mere Lu Yunsong and a mere Purple Tao sect couldn't enter Wang Lin's eyes. They weren't qualified to threaten Wang Lin. Whether it was Luo Tian, the True Thunder Celestial, the head of the Alliance's Rosefinch Divine Sect, the descendant of Celestial Emperor Bai Fan, the junior brother of Celestial Lord Shimizu, or the disciple of the awakened Celestial Emperor Qin Shuang, any one of these identities was not something the Purple Tao sect could compare to. Wang Lin's 1,000 years of cultivation experience was not something a genius like Lu Yunsong could imagine. The threat from the Purple Tao sect was like a joke. It couldn't compare to a single hair on Tuo Sin's body. He waved his right sleeve, and the black spirit beast that had lost its master and didn't dare to escape immediately turned into a ray of black light and was put away by Wang Lin. It didn't dare to resist at all. The sky was already bright, and a new day arrived as the sun rose into the sky. The rainbow was no longer blurry but clear and bright. It gave off a gentle glow that shrouded the world, the continent of Mo Luo, and the hearts of all the people of the Origin sect. His white hair fluttered as Wang Lin's figure disappeared with one step. From beginning to end, not a single cultivator of the Origin sect saw Wang Lin's face. The only thing they could see was his indomitable back and his snow-white hair. The surroundings were completely silent, and only the sound of breathing became heavier and heavier. Aside from Lu Yanfei, the other 3 elders of the Origin sect looked at each other in shock. In a short period of time, their despair and sorrow were quickly replaced by shock. The change in their minds was too fast, and even now, they felt like they were in a dream. Who is he? Why is this senior helping my Origin sect? He instantly killed Song Wuda. What is his cultivation level? Lu Yanfei softly said, he has a head of white hair. Lu Yinfei softly said and revealed a smile. This kind of smile hadn't appeared since her teacher was seriously injured and died. Her smile was like a blooming flower, full of charm, beauty, and happiness. Her 3 senior apprentice brothers revealed thoughtful expressions as they looked at where Wang Lin disappeared to and silently pondered. However, the shock in their hearts was like a ripple that couldn't be calmed down for a long time. After a short period of silence, the direct disciples of the elders burst out in cheers. They turned into rays of sword energy and flew toward the origin sect under the lead of the 4 elders. Song Wuda and Rudy are dead. The Purple Dao sect will not let this go. As the 4 elders moved forward, one of them suppressed the shock in his heart and revealed a worried expression. He sent out a divine sense message to the other 3. Before teacher died, he said the north and white hair. That senior had a head of white hair, so he must be the person teacher spoke of. With this person here, perhaps our origin sect isn't at a dead end. However, who exactly is this senior? Is he in my Gui Yuan sect? I have also observed the 31 mortals, but I did not discover anything. If he can help us once, he will help us a second time. Lu Yinfei's divine sense was firm, causing the other 3 to become silent. It is useless to investigate. Since this senior doesn't want us to know, then let nature take its course. Lu Yinfei's eyes lit up, and she revealed a smile once more. She slapped her bag of holding and sent a force into it to destroy an ancient scroll. It didn't take long for the people of the origin sect to return to the sect and scatter in excitement. Lu Yinfei didn't return to the pavilion in the southern mountain range, but went to the courtyard with Su Yun. The 2 women were both dainty and beautiful. When they stood together, it was truly a sight that could steal one's soul. Their beauty was beyond compare. When the disciples saw them from afar, they would be in a trance for a moment. However, thinking about Lu Yinfei's identity, they immediately sobered up and were about to go up to greet her. However, Su Yun waved her hand to disperse them. It was obvious the 2 of them didn't want to be disturbed. Su Yun's heart pounded violently as she softly said to her teacher, "Teacher, he lives here." In the rank 5 region of the Cloud Sea, there was a purple continent within the fog. This continent was more than 3 times the size of Luo. From afar, it looked like a fierce beast that coldly stared at the stars. The obvious difference from the continent of Luo was that there were 4 black towers on this purple continent that gave off a gentle glow that shrouded the entire continent. At that moment, the fog suddenly churned and a sharp howl rang out. A tiger-shaped ferocious beast that was 1,000 feet long charged out of the fog. It stared at the purple continent with hatred in its eyes, and it seemed to be able to hear the shrill cries of a female beast on the continent. As it roared, it moved like lightning toward the continent. It was so fast that it closed in the blink of an eye and smashed into the light around the purple continent. The light around the continent flashed rapidly. The tiger-shaped beast let out a roar and charged once more. However, just at this moment, a ray of purple light shot out from the continent and closed in at an unimaginable speed. There was a middle-aged man inside the purple light. He wore a purple and gold robe and looked extremely majestic. However, his eyes were deep and his eyebrows were low, giving him a gloomy look. He was so fast that he left behind afterimages. In an instant, he broke through the protective layer of light and appeared in the starry sky. With a wave of his right hand, a purple light filled the air and instantly enveloped the tiger-like beast. "Refine!" A cold voice echoed in the air, and the purple light surrounding the ferocious beast instantly turned into a gigantic alchemy furnace. As it rotated rapidly, shrill roars came from within, but before long, those roars gradually faded away and eventually disappeared without a trace. Congratulations to the sect master for luring another star tiger. I presume it won't be long before the sect master's tiger-bone soul blade is complete. A long laugh echoed. A purple-robed old man appeared beside the purple golden-robed man and clasped his hands. Chapter 1146. We still need 9 more. but the star tigers in this area have already gone extinct. We have to go further." The middle-aged man smiled gloomily, but before he could speak, his expression suddenly changed. He raised his right hand and grabbed at the air. A crack to his storage space appeared before him, and a jade flew out. The jade trembled and cracked from the middle, and a soul fragment floated out from within. The soul fragment was Ludi. His eyes were filled with fear as he dissipated before the middle-aged man. "Young master." The smile on the purple-robed old man's face disappeared and was replaced with shock. The middle-aged man stared at the soul fragment as it gradually dissipated. He remained motionless and slowly closed his eyes. The old man beside him was shocked. He looked at the sect master and his heart trembled. He had followed the sect master for many years and knew that the calmer the sect master was, the more it meant a storm was about to begin. Where did Ludi go before? After a long time, the middle-aged man opened his eyes. There was a hint of sadness burning in his eyes, but his voice was terrifyingly calm. Young master went to the continent of Mo. The old man lowered his head and respectfully spoke. The shock in his mind still hadn't calmed down. He couldn't understand how someone would dare to offend the Purple Dao sect and the sect master, Lu Yunsong, in the rank 5 region to kill junior sect master Lu Di. The old man lowered his head and respectfully said, "Continent of Mo Luo, origin sect. Why didn't anyone report this to me?" The middle-aged man's voice was still calm, but when the old man heard it, his body trembled. He suddenly thought of something and his face turned pale. "Young master." Without waiting for the old man to finish, the middle-aged man shook his head and slowly said, as if he was talking to himself, "He is a cultivator, but he is still lustful and arrogant. In the name of the Purple Dao sect's young master, he has harmed many female disciples of various sects and has done such vicious things as sucking their een. Sect master." The old man's face was pale. "Who went to the continent of Mo Luo with him? It should be Song Wuda. He grew up under Song Wuda's care. In his eyes, Song Wuda might be his second father. He must have gone to the continent of Mo Luo because he fancied the origin sect's Lu Yanfei. He wanted to take advantage of that old geezer's death to make the origin sect his palace." The old man stood there silently. As far as he knew, everything the sect leader had said was true. The middle-aged man raised his head and looked at the blurry star mist in front of him. After looking at it for a while, he turned and walked toward the purple continent. That good-for-nothing, unfilial son. If he dies, then he dies. This world will have one less scourge. However, in the end, I'm his father. Since he likes Lu Yanfei, then let that girl die with him. As for the person who killed him, let him die with him." The middle-aged man's calm words didn't seem to contain any emotion. He wasn't like this before. His back view was a little bleak. The old man behind him became even more pale. After hesitating for a bit, he clenched his teeth and said, "Sect master." Before the little ancestor left, the old man heard Wuda say that the little ancestor was going to the Purple Cloud Sea to get the Heaven Een flag. He said he was going to seal Lu Yanfei's soul and the souls of the women he collected inside to feed the Een Celestial. The middle-aged man suddenly stopped and slowly turned around. The calmness in his eyes collapsed and was replaced with monstrous anger. A sense of fear and panic filled his body. Unfilial son, continent of Mo Luo, origin sect. Lu Yanfei silently looked at the ordinary wooden house in the courtyard. After hesitating for a bit, she walked into the courtyard. Suyin followed behind her. She was very nervous. She could even hear her heart beating rapidly. The door to Wang Lin's room was closed. Lu Yanfei and Suyun stood outside the door and seemed to be silent as well. After a long time, Lu Yanfei bit her lower lip and softly said, "Is Senior here?" "Not here." A calm voice came from the house and entered the ears of Lu Yanfei and Suyun. The two of them couldn't help but be startled. They obviously didn't expect to hear such an answer. In truth, a long, long time ago in the Alliance star system, there was a woman who had asked the same question and received the same answer. After all, whether it was the original body or the avatar, they were both Wang Lin. Lu Yinfei covered her mouth and smiled. She was very beautiful. She bowed toward the house and softly said, "Teacher once had an uncle master named Lu Zihao. According to teacher, Uncle Master Lu was a Tao addict. Aside from the last time he went missing, he had never left the continent of Mo Luo. He didn't even go to the main sect and had very few friends. Due to it being too long ago, no one in the origin sect has seen him. Even my 3 senior martial brothers have never seen him before. I only saw a portrait of him once by chance. It was Master who showed it to me and gave it to me, because Martial Granduncle Lu is the ancestor of my Lu family. This portrait has been around for too long, and it's already badly damaged. On the way back, just now, it's already broken." After saying this, Lu Yinfei respectfully left the courtyard with a smile on her face. Su Yin couldn't make heads or tails of her master's words. She didn't understand what her master was trying to say. Wang Lin sat on the bed in the room and looked at the black lotus in his right hand. At this moment, his eyes shined brightly as if they could penetrate the room and land on Lu Yinfei, who was walking out of the courtyard. Lu Yinfei's body trembled. She didn't look back and calmly walked out of the courtyard. What a smart woman! Wang Lin withdrew his gaze. Aside from talking with Lu Yinfei on the mountain range, he had no other contact with her. However, this woman was able to come up with such a shocking analysis based on the clues her disciple had reported, their conversation on the mountain range, and how Wang Lin had killed Song Wuda and Rudy. Su Yin didn't understand what she had just said, but with Wang Lin's intelligence, he had clearly heard it. This Lu Yinfei obviously guessed that he was the white-haired man and was very sure. In her view, he had this kind of cultivation and was still hiding in the origin sect. Aside from wanting something from the origin sect, he had to be hiding from his enemies. However, Lu Yinfei couldn't think of any place in the origin sect that would attract his attention, so she was even more certain that he was hiding from his enemies. As a result, if Wang Lin continued to stay in the origin sect, he would need an identity that no one would suspect. Lu Yinfei's words had given Wang Lin an identity. As for the problem of Wang Lin's enemies, Lu Yinfei obviously had to ignore it. Wang Lin had met countless people in his life, but he hadn't met many women with this kind of intelligence. She was different from Lu Mei's ever-changing nature, different from Red Butterfly's cold arrogance, and different from Li Yuan's gentleness. She was intelligent that she didn't easily reveal. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin smiled and muttered, "Lu Zihao, this identity allows me to have roots in the Cloud Sea." The reason Wang Lin cared so much about his identity in the Cloud Sea was because of his experience in the Luo Tian star system. Wang Lin didn't notice this in the Luo Tian star system, and in the end, his identity was transparent to those powerful cultivators. This brought him a lot of inconvenience. After all, in any star system, there would always be xenophobia and people who were not of the same race as him. With his current cultivation level, it was even more difficult to deal with the problem of his identity. However, right now, although it wasn't perfect, there was a way to solve it. Wang Lin stopped thinking about this matter and looked at the black lotus in his right hand. His divine sense spread out and he continued to study it. If this lotus was just a treasure, it wouldn't have caught Wang Lin's attention. However, no matter how much his divine sense probed it, he was surprised to find that this lotus was a real plant. It was just that some simple formations have been added to seal it. This Cloud Sea star system is mysterious to have a natural plant that can be turned into a treasure. If the seal on this lotus is opened, it can form a very powerful defense. It is indeed mysterious. After playing with the lotus in his hand and carefully looking at it, Wang Lin put it down and picked up the bag that belonged to the young man in purple. The young man's bag contained a lot of things. Aside from some silver filth and scattered treasures, there were 3 items that caught Wang Lin's attention. There was a purple jade bottle, a small golden flag, and a burning incense stick as thick as a baby's arm. As for celestial jades, they were very rare. There were less than 100 pieces. Unfortunately, after reaching the Nirvana cleanser stage, one no longer needs a bag of holding. Even if one dies, others won't be able to find the location of the storage space or open it. Otherwise, that Nirvana cleanser old man would have a lot of pills and treasures. Wang Lin shook his head. He first picked up the small golden flag and scanned it with his divine sense. His expression immediately became gloomy. There was a cold wind inside the small flag. When Wang Lin's divine sense spread out, he immediately found hundreds of female souls. All of them were very beautiful, and a few of them were peerless. However, inside the small flag, these women all looked miserable. They were sealed inside and couldn't come out. There was also a snake-shaped bee soul inside the small flag that seemed to be devouring the souls of women. When Wang Lin's divine sense spread out, it seemed to be awakened and gave off a shocking aura. Even Wang Lin's eyes narrowed. Wang Lin was startled, and his divine sense was immediately withdrawn by the bee soul. He stared at the small golden flag in his hand, and his pupils shrank. Extreme Yin aura. Wang Lin suddenly stood up. His calm heart was like a monstrous wave as he took a few deep breaths. Unfortunately, it is incomplete and only contains a trace of extreme Yin aura. Also, the method of raising it is completely wrong. It is very different from the extreme yang that Tian Yunzi used by Wei to give birth to. However, this is still a trace of extreme Yin. Wang Lin touched the spot between his eyebrows. The heaven-defying beads' 5 elements were complete, forming Yin and Yang. Back then, Bai Wei had obtained extreme Yang, so he only lacked extreme Yin to complete the heaven-defying bead a second time. Chapter 1147. Holding the golden flag, Wang Lin's eyes slightly closed. His eyes shined brightly, and he began to ponder. Using the souls of women to nourish the extreme Yin is a big mistake. Back then, all seer borrowed Bai Wei's body, and in the instant when he was at the peak of extreme Yin, he naturally transitioned to extreme Yang. If I want to obtain the complete extreme Yin, then I need to break the extreme Yang at the peak of extreme Yin. Looking down at the small golden flag, Wang Lin shook his head. With Wang Lin's eyesight, he could tell at a glance that the souls of the women in the flag were added later, and they hadn't been here for a long time. What nonsense! Wang Lin waved his right hand, and a storm surged inside the small golden flag. His divine sense was like a sharp blade that landed on the arrays that trapped the souls of the women. Popping sounds echoed as the arrays collapsed one by one. The moment the arrays collapsed, the souls of the women in miserable states flew out. Their eyes were filled with confusion, but these women were all very outstanding people in their respective sections. Although they had been tortured to death by Rudy and sealed as souls, they soon recovered their sanity. They silently bowed toward Wang Lin with bitterness, relief, and gratitude in their eyes before disappearing. Perhaps what awaited them was reincarnation, or perhaps there wasn't. Watching the souls of the women disappear, Wang Lin silently pondered. It didn't take long for all the souls to disappear. Only the extreme Yin soul remained inside the small golden flag. This extreme Yin soul let out a low roar and charged out the moment the souls of the women left. It seemed like it wanted to escape as well, but the moment it appeared, there was a flash of coldness in Wang Lin's eyes. His left hand formed a seal, and a restriction landed on the small golden flag. Suddenly, a green light flashed, and the extreme Yin soul bounced back as if it had collided with an iron plate. It roared in anger. Wang Lin didn't pay any attention to it. The seals on his left hand changed, and restrictions landed on the small golden flag. Then he put it away into his storage space. Not only is this strand of extreme Yin raised in the wrong way, it's also incomplete. Since this belongs to Rudy, then there must be clues in the purple Tao sect. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin picked up the purple jade bottle. The jade bottle was slightly hot, and there was a cycle inside of it. The energy of heaven and earth revolved around it, as if it were eternal. Wang Lin's divine sense immediately enveloped the jade bottle. Under the influence of his divine sense, the jade bottle gradually became transparent, allowing him to clearly see the 3 medicinal pills inside the jade bottle, rotating with the energy of heaven and earth. The 3 pills were about the same size, and they all glowed with a purple light. There was also a fierce soul roaring within them. After withdrawing his divine sense, Wang Lin's gaze fell on the 3rd item. The incense that was as thick as a baby's arm wasn't unfamiliar to him. Back in the Alliance star system, he had seen it in the memories of the mosquito beast. The cultivator from the Cloud Sea had used this incense to confuse the mosquito beast and lure it out of the 4 divine sect. Time slowly passed, and the rainy season dissipated. The continent of Mo Luo welcomed a beautiful sunny day. Wang Lin seemed to have gotten used to life in the Origin sect and spent all day studying alchemy. Su Yun was very respectful toward Tsing Niu, who lived next to her. Although Tsing Niu hadn't admitted it, Su Yun's female instinct told her that Tsing Niu was the white-haired person. In particular, whenever she thought about his figure in her mind and that graceful finger, Su Yun would become nervous. For example, at this moment, she looked at Wang Lin with confusion in her eyes. This is condensing grass, an auxiliary ingredient for alchemy. Most of the pill recipes in my Origin sect require this herb. Any cultivator in the Cloud Sea star system that had reached a certain level of cultivation would know a lot about herbs. This had a lot to do with the alchemy skills of the Cloud Sea star system. What she didn't understand was that this Tsang Niu obviously didn't know anything about such simple common sense. If Wang Lin wanted to refine pills, he first had to remember the names and effects of all the herbs in the Cloud Sea star system. In particular, some of the herbs he knew had names that were different from the ones in the Alliance. Su Yun, who lived next to him, became the target of Wang Lin's inquiry. This is ink cloud grass, one of the main ingredients for refining the cloud-lacking pill. Wang Lin's expression was cold but calm. In a short period of time, he memorized all the herbs in the courtyard. Wang Lin looked at the courtyard and asked, "Is there a mist flower here?" In the jade he saw in the Taoist temple, aside from the soul of a fierce beast, the mist flower was one of the 3 most important herbs needed to refine the rank 6 soul-parting pill. Su Yun explained, the mist flower only grows on wild continents in the outer star system. It is said that the denser the fog, the more mist flowers there are. As far as I know, there are only 3 dried flowers in our Gue Yuan sect, and they're all with Marshal Uncle Li. Su Yun explained, and then she added another sentence. Su Yun explained, Uncle Master Li's alchemy skills are peerless in the Origin sect. Wang Lin nodded and no longer paid attention to Su Yun. He lowered his head and took some herbs according to his memory before returning to his room. Seeing Wang Lin take out the herbs, Su Yun's heart ached, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. Seeing that Wang Lin was about to return to his room, she quickly said, This alchemy requires you to go to the alchemy room. The alchemy room is in the western courtyard. Not only is there a pill furnace, but it can also activate the earth fire. There's also a protective formation, so even if the pill explodes, there won't be any danger. No need. Wang Lin didn't look back as he walked into the room. It wasn't until Wang Lin left that Su Yun stomped her foot and revealed an indignant expression. She had worked hard to obtain all the herbs in this courtyard, and some had been obtained by her teacher from the dangerous wild continents filled with fierce beasts and given to her to grow. It could be said that most of these herbs belonged to Su Yun and her teacher. All the disciples in the sect knew about this, so they wouldn't dare to come here to take the herbs. In Su Yun's eyes, these herbs were extremely important to her. Now that she saw Wang Lin take away the herbs, he didn't listen to her advice and was actually refining in his room. Thinking about how this person didn't even know the names of the herbs, it was obvious that this was the first time he was refining. Once the pill exploded, not only would the room be destroyed, but the entire courtyard would also be affected. Su Yun anxiously stomped her foot again, but she didn't dare to step forward to stop him. Not going to the alchemy room to refine pills. He obviously has his own pill furnace. Relying on his high cultivation, he only knows how to bully a junior like me. The more Su Yun thought about it, the angrier she became. She sat down cross-legged, thinking that if the pill exploded, she would do her best to protect the herbs. The good impression she had of Wang Lin had dissipated by more than half. Arrogant. Thinking about Wang Lin's expression just now, Su Yun became even angrier. Although alchemy is related to one's cultivation, it doesn't have much of an effect. It requires experience and countless attempts. No matter how high one's cultivation is, the success rate of refining a pill for the first time isn't high. Su Yun frowned. She focused all her attention and helplessly stood guard. Wang Lin didn't pay attention to Su Yun's anger. After returning to his room, he sat down cross-legged and waved his hand. All the herbs he had taken earlier floated into the air. A flame flashed in his left eye, and in an instant, a flame began to burn in his left eye. Alchemy didn't necessarily require a pill furnace. The purpose of a pill furnace was to prevent the medicinal aura from leaking out, and it was also to better condense the flame, allowing the pill to take shape in high temperature. To Wang Lin, none of this was a problem. The fire of the world followed his control. At this moment, the white flame flew out and turned into a fire dragon around Wang Lin. It circled around him once before condensing into a fireball. His eyes were calm as Wang Lin's right hand reached out and the herbs floating before him were split into different portions. One portion remained in the air and the other entered the fireball. This was the first time Wang Lin had refined a pill in the Cloud Sea Star system. Although it was only a rank 3 pill, Wang Lin's expression was still serious as he stared at the fireball. His gaze seemed to penetrate the fireball. The herbs rapidly melted inside the fireball until they turned to dust. However, with Wang Lin's control over the flame, they didn't turn to dust. Instead, they gathered together and began to absorb each other's medicinal properties in a unique way. Shortly after, Wang Lin's right hand reached at the void and a crack to his storage space appeared. There was a flash of black light, and Wang Lin grabbed it. There was a tadpole-like spirit beast soul inside the black light. It was Rudy's beast. When it followed Rudy, it was very glorious. Often, Rudy would give an order, and it would cruelly devour mortals and seriously injure cultivators. The sweet taste of flesh and blood between its teeth made it very enjoyable. However, at this moment, the beast's soul's body trembled and its eyes were filled with fear. It let out roars and wanted to break free from Wang Lin's hand. However, no matter how much it struggled, it was useless. As Wang Lin waved his right hand, the beast's soul let out a miserable scream and was thrown into the fireball. It quickly fused with the pill, and a medicinal fragrance gradually filled the room. Just at this moment, Wang Lin frowned and his right hand reached into the fireball. He grabbed the pill and immediately pulled out the beast soul that had fused with it. The moment Wang Lin's right hand left the fireball, the pill trembled and released a destructive force. With a bang, it collapsed and turned into a shockwave that swept out. However, it was stopped by the fireball. There was only a muffled sound, and it didn't break through the fireball. Pill explosion. When Su Yun heard the muffled sound, she quickly stood up with a nervous expression. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no explosion. Instead, she saw a gloomy Wang Lin walk out of the house and take back a lot of herbs. Su Yun reacted and angrily stomped her feet again. She wanted to go and argue with Wang Lin, but when she thought about Wang Lin's expression, she didn't dare to go up. Bullying others with force. This time the pill will definitely explode as well. Chapter 1148. Su Yun's words came true. In just 3 days, Wang Lin had refined 16 pills, and apart from the last one, all of them had failed. Every time he failed, he would silently search for the reason before walking out of the house to continue picking herbs. Looking at the medicinal garden that had been full of vitality 3 days ago, but now had become a desolate land, Su Yun could not bear it any longer, and her eyes reddened. This medicinal garden contained too much of her blood, sweat, and tears. In the past, even when she refined pills, she would be very careful and not consume too much. But now, in just 3 days, she had almost run out of herbs. Although there had not been a single pill explosion in the past 3 days, Su Yun would rather have a pill explosion. Even if it destroyed most of the courtyard, it would be much better than this torture. Looking at the house that made her feel extremely disgusted, Su Yun could not take it anymore. She rushed over and pushed open the door. She stared at Wang Lin, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground with a finished pill in his hand. What made Su Yun feel even more disgusted was that Sang Nyo was smiling while looking at the pill. This smile caused Su Yun's anger to rise. Sang Nyo, Su Yun, who was gnashing her teeth, took a deep breath. Thinking about the other party's cultivation base, she had no choice but to suppress her anger. She kept telling herself not to be angry, not to be angry. Tucking her hair behind her ear, Su Yun said softly, Sang Nyo, congratulations on refining the pill. Can I take a look? After 15 failures and using up an entire courtyard's worth of herbs, she had finally refined this pill. During this time, the beast's soul had fused more than 10 times, and in the end, the beast's soul felt that the pain of fusing was worse than death. It wanted Wang Lin to immediately succeed so that it would feel less pain. Looking at the pill in his hand, Wang Lin sighed. There were many things that one needed to pay attention to when fusing with the beast's soul. These were not explained in the jade slip, and the alchemist had to comprehend them themselves. Hearing Su Yun's words, Wang Lin subconsciously rubbed his nose. His gaze followed Su Yun's beautiful figure to the almost deserted courtyard outside. Even with his 1,000 years of experience, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. With a wave of his right hand, he tossed the pill to Su Yun. Wang Lin was just about to say something when he was interrupted by an ear-piercing scream. Su Yun's eyes widened as she stared at the pill in her hand. She could no longer control her anger. At this moment, the white-haired figure, the graceful demeanor of that finger, and the profound cultivation of the senior were all thrown to the back of her mind. After being tortured for 3 days, she could only watch helplessly as the herbs that she had painstakingly planted over the years were pulled out one by one. But in the end, he only managed to concoct a rank 3 pill. Even though a rank 3 pill was already very precious and was needed by corporeal yang cultivators, the entire courtyard of herbs was enough to concoct a rank 4 pill. Under Marshal Uncle Lee's help, there was even a slight chance of concocting a rank 5 pill. Sang Nyo, give me back my herbs. Su Yun's eyes were red as she looked up to argue with Wang Lin. However, when she looked up, she found that the room was empty and Sang Nyo was gone. In the sky above the continent of Mo Luo, Wang Lin's figure appeared. He rubbed his nose and revealed a bitter smile. Su Yun's voice was still echoing in his ears. Forget it. Isn't it just a courtyard of herbs? Wang Lin shook his head. His body flickered, and he turned into a ray of light that shot into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared over the horizon. After breaking through the light barrier around the continent of Mo Luo, what appeared before Wang Lin was a sea of stars filled with fog. Aside from alchemy and spirit bee spells, there was also a star map of the rank 5 region where the continent of Mo Luo was located. After studying the star map, Wang Lin found that in the dense fog of the rank 5 region, aside from the continents where cultivators could live, there was also a continent called the wilderness. It was similar to the wild planets in the thunder and rain star domains, but in the cloud sea, these wild continents didn't have the protection of the Black Towers. They were completely covered in fog and became the dens of fierce beasts. There were many fierce beasts on these wild continents. Some extremely precious herbs often grew on these wild continents. According to the star map in his mind, Wang Lin charged into the fog. The fog was like a cloud that blocked one's vision and prevented one's divine sense from spreading out too far. In particular, Wang Lin wasn't familiar with the cloud sea, so he couldn't help but slow down. The ferocious beasts on the wild continent that was close to Mo Luo had become sparse over the years, and it had become a training ground for the Gui Yuan sect disciples. There were not many ferocious beasts, and most of them were low-ranked. Even the herbs had all been harvested a long time ago. Naturally, they weren't Wang Lin's choices. Wang Lin's goal was the wild continents further away. There were even stronger, fierce beasts there, and because not many cultivators went there, there was still a large amount of herbs. As he moved forward, Wang Lin moved faster and faster. There would often be flashes of light inside the fog, and he would appear in the distance. Although his divine sense didn't spread out far, only less than 10,000 feet, even Nirvana Scryer cultivators could only spread out their divine sense 1,000 feet. Only nirvana cleanser cultivators could reach 10,000 feet. Along the way, many strange fierce beasts appeared in Wang Lin's divine sense. Most of these fierce beasts looked gloomy and strange. They were fish-shaped beasts covered in scales. When they opened their mouths, one could see countless sharp teeth and a fishy smell. There were red beasts that looked like dragons, but their bodies were only a few hundred feet long. They moved as fast as lightning. These beasts obviously lived in groups, and when they appeared, there would be hundreds of them. They were like red bolts of lightning shuttling through the star mist. There was the nether beast that looked like Wang Lin saw in the Luo Tian, but its body had shrunk countless times and was only a few thousand feet long. These beasts weren't fast, but even the red beast had to avoid them. However, when these fierce beasts entered Wang Lin's divine sense range, their bodies trembled and they quickly retreated far away. However, when these fierce beasts entered the range of Wang Lin's divine sense, their bodies trembled and they quickly retreated far away. While moving, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he waved his right hand. A crack to his storage space appeared and buzzing sounds echoed as the mosquito beasts flew out. These mosquito beasts surrounded him and let out bursts of hissing sounds filled with joy. In particular, Wang Lin's purple mosquito beast was jumping around in joy. Wang Lin's body flickered, and he sat on the back of the purple mosquito beast. Without Wang Lin's order, the mosquito beast immediately rushed forward and moved through the fog with its companions. The passage of time in the star domain seemed to last forever. If one didn't pay attention, it would be very difficult to notice. After all, there was no alternation of day and night here. There was only a hazy star mist slowly drifting about. After silently calculating, 3 days later, Wang Lin was far away from the continent of Mo Luo. He was closing in on a wild continent that was marked as dangerous. Shortly after, a huge shadow appeared in Wang Lin's divine sense. This shadow seemed to be able to cover the star domain, and as Wang Lin closed in, there were faint roars coming from it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and the mosquito beast became even more vigilant. As he got closer, the shadow gradually became clearer. This was a huge, wild continent. Wang Lin jumped off the back of the mosquito beast, broke through the fog, and landed on the ground of the wild continent. Looking around, this place was filled with fog like space itself. If it wasn't for the fact that he was standing on the ground with his divine sense, it would be difficult to tell the difference between this place and the star domain. The surroundings were completely quiet, with only the faint roars of fierce beasts coming from the distance. It was as if this place was not as peaceful as it seemed. The ground was covered in black sand, and Wang Lin casually walked forward. A ruin gradually appeared in his divine sense. This ruin was clearly a mortal city, but there was no sign of life. The houses had collapsed, and there were dried bloodstains on the walls. Just at this moment, a black shadow charged out from one of the ruined houses. It charged at Wang Lin with a roar and a fishy smell. The black shadow was only a few dozen feet tall, but it was as fast as lightning and closed in on Wang Lin in an instant. Wang Lin's expression was calm, and he didn't even need to act. The mosquito beast turned into a shadow and charged at the shadow. With a bang, the shadow trembled and a large mouth pierced through its head. The shadow's body shrank and turned into a pool of blood. The mosquito beast flapped its wings and flew back. Its eyes were filled with disdain. Wang Lin patted the mosquito beast's head and pointed ahead. The mosquito beast king flew out and flew toward the ruins with more than a dozen of its kind. The moment they flew out, shadows rushed out from the ruins. There were more than a dozen of them, and they roared as they charged at the mosquito beasts. With Wang Lin's eyesight and divine sense, he could naturally see that these shadows were all black apes. They were the same as the beast souls from the soul-parting pill that Su Yun swallowed. "Leave the souls behind," Wang Lin's calm voice echoed. The mosquito beasts and the ape beasts were not on the same level at all. The battle quickly ended, and the ape beasts died miserably one after another. They turned into pools of blood and emitted a thick stench of blood that spread in all directions. More than a dozen mosquito beasts flew back to Wang Lin's side. At the same time, they spat out bee souls that were collected by Wang Lin. Perhaps it was because of the smell of blood, but the roars of the beasts in the distance increased. The ground trembled, and there was a gust of wind in the sky, blowing the fog forward. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he walked through the ruins. His divine sense swept by, but he didn't find any herbs, so he turned around and left. His figure moved forward in the fog, as if he had become one with the fog. He gave off a dense, killing intent, and there was a fierceness more intense than that of any fierce beast. Above him, there were more than a dozen mosquito beasts circling around. Under this fierce, killing intent, even the roars from the distance became sparse until they disappeared. The ground no longer trembled and the wind in the sky stopped. Let the ears reach 1,000 votes. I'm still a few dozen short. Also, the recommendation votes are a bit too pitiful. Please support me. Chapter 1149. On this wild continent, which was named the opening ape continent by the star map in the Jade Slip, there were many mountain peaks that rose and fell like waves. They were faintly discernible in the mist, and the low roars of ferocious beasts could be heard coming from the mountain peaks. On the ground, there were ruins of cities that seemed to have been hidden for countless years. They silently told the story of the prosperity of this wild continent. But now, they were nothing but shattered nothingness. There were no songs to listen to, and all that was left were images of vicissitudes. Among the fierce beasts, there were those that liked to live in groups, and there were also those that were proud and solitary. At this moment, among the many mountains, the roars of the beasts were the most intense. The roars shook the heavens and the earth, and even the fog could not cover them up. This mountain was completely dark green, and it was steep and rugged. It was like sharp swords that pierced through the ground and into the clouds. Numerous black, ape-like fierce beasts that were nearly 100 feet tall were moving through the mountain, rushing towards the middle of the mountain without a care for anything else. At the top of the mountain, there was a giant black, ape-like fierce beast that was sitting cross-legged like a human. Its body was tall and mighty, and it was no less than 1,000 feet tall. Its thick arms were like a 1,000-year-old pine tree, and it would take several people to wrap their arms around them. In front of it, there was a large purple tree that only reached its calf. The tree's trunk was withered in many places, as if it had experienced too much time. However, it still did not die, and its branches were dense, and there were large amounts of leaves growing on it. Strangely, the leaves of the tree were snow white, and the veins on them were clear. They looked like crystals. There were also 2 fist-sized fruits on the tree. The black and white colors intertwined within the fruits, and it was quite strange. When the giant ape-like fierce beast opened and closed its eyes, a threatening light shined out. From afar, it looked like 2 bright lanterns, and it gave off a fierce aura that could shake the heavens and earth. It seemed to be able to pierce through the fog, past the fierce beasts, and stared at a white-haired figure that was surrounded by a large number of fierce beasts in the middle of the mountain. The moment it looked at Wang Lin waved his right hand, and a black wind spread out. It took away the souls of more than 10 fierce beasts in front of him, and he raised his head to meet that cold gaze. Roar! A roar that caused the heavens and earth to tremble rang out from the top of the mountain. As this roar rang out, the ferocity of the beasts that were pouncing towards Wang Lin increased greatly. A foul stench filled the air, wanting to tear apart Wang Lin's body and devour him along with his soul. Wang Lin's expression was the same as usual as he looked at the numerous beasts in front of him. He took a step forward and directly turned into a white beam of light, rushing towards the peak of the mountain. In the sky, there were more than 10 mosquito beasts roaring, and around them were eagle-like beasts. These beasts had ferocious expressions and gave off fierce auras as they began a life and death battle with the mosquito beasts. As Wang Lin walked forward, all the fierce beasts that blocked his path collapsed with a wave of his hand and turned into a rain of blood. Wang Lin's right hand reached out, and flying swords flew out from his storage space. They surrounded Wang Lin and formed a rotating sword formation. This allowed Wang Lin to slaughter his way forward without stopping at all. From afar, one could only see a white line moving at an unimaginable speed. In the blink of an eye, it closed in on the top of the mountain. There was a flash of ferocity in the giant ape's eyes, and it suddenly stood up. The moment it stood up, the mountain trembled, and it mercilessly stomped on the ground. It jumped down from the mountain and charged at Wang Lin. Its speed was not much slower than Wang Lin's. It closed in on Wang Lin and was about to collide. The black ape revealed a ferocious expression and raised its right arm. However, at this moment, Wang Lin's body became a blur and disappeared without a trace. The black ape's arm missed, and it turned around to see Wang Lin's figure appear next to the tree on the mountain. The black ape's ferocious eyes narrowed, and it waved its right arm. A gust of wind suddenly appeared around its body, forming a hurricane that connected the heavens and earth. It swept toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's right hand landed on the tree next to him, and he lightly patted it. The tree was instantly absorbed into his storage space. At this moment, the hurricane arrived. Wang Lin's left hand formed a seal, and he pointed forward. Immediately, strands of slaughter chi shot out and surrounded Wang Lin's body, forming a storm of slaughter chi. The sound of the storm of slaughter chi echoed through the heavens and earth as it charged toward the hurricane. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the hurricane immediately collapsed. The storm of slaughter chi didn't slow down in the slightest as it charged toward the giant ape and collided with it. An angry roar shook the heavens. Rumbling sounds rang out in front of the giant ape. Its flesh and blood were badly mangled, and its enormous body immediately retreated. It was fiercely flung into midair. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he stepped forward. He turned into a meteor and instantly closed in on the giant ape. Two of his fingers formed a sword, and he repeatedly pointed at the ape's body. Every time his finger descended, the black ape would howl miserably. Its body would tremble, and a bloody hole would appear where his finger landed. Large amounts of blood would spray out and dye the surrounding mist red. Strands of origin energy entered the black ape through Wang Lin's fingers and formed seals. Wang Lin withdrew his fingers and coldly said, "Are you willing to become my spirit beast?" He had been on the wild continent for 7 days and had killed many fierce beasts along the way. He had obtained a lot of herbs. Some of these fierce beasts had spells that could battle against cultivators. There were even a few rank 5 fierce beasts that were comparable to Nirvana Scryer cultivators. However, in the end, they were all killed by Wang Lin and their souls were taken. The giant black ape before him was also a rank 5 fierce beast, but its skin was thick. Even after being hit by Wang Lin's spell, it was only seriously injured and not dead. It was obvious that this beast was at the peak of rank 5 and could even reach rank 6 at any time. This was why Wang Lin wanted to tame it. What answered Wang Lin was an even more violent roar and a punch from its left arm. This punch set off a powerful gust of wind. There was a hint of the power of an ancient god. This showed just how powerful the black ape was. Wang Lin frowned. He hadn't fused with his original body yet, so his body naturally couldn't compare to the black ape's. He let out a cold snort and was about to dodge and use another spell when his eyes lit up. For some reason, the image of Luo Tian, the old man in black, facing the ancient god's arm, appeared in his mind. Wang Lin silently pondered as he faced the gust of wind. His mind was calm as all the origin energy in his body surged toward his palm. Thunderous rumbles echoed as he closed his eyes. The image of the old man in black raising his hand to stop the ancient god Tua Sen's palm continued to replay in his mind. A hint of enlightenment gradually shrouded Wang Lin's mind. Just like when he comprehended the huge palm print in the rain world, on this wild land, in the sky, in this star fog, and in this situation that was similar to when the black-robed old man faced the sun in the land of the ancient god. Wang Lin had seen the third step many years ago and had personally experienced the third step in Qing Lin's fortuitous encounter. With all of these opportunities, he had a shocking understanding of the old man in Black's palm that was clearly a third-step spell. The gust of wind blew Wang Lin's clothes backward. The giant ape's arm closed in and smashed toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes, raised his right hand, and gently placed it on the giant ape's arm that was already in front of him. A powerful force came from the arm and collided with the origin energy in Wang Lin's palm. His clothes fluttered violently, and his white hair fluttered behind him, but his body didn't move at all. The giant ape's body also trembled. Its arm felt as if it had hit a cloud of fog. It didn't feel any force at all. Instead, it caused an inexplicable pain in its body. Wang Lin's eyes became brighter and brighter. The old man in Black's actions replayed countless times in his mind until it became instinctive. He subconsciously raised his left hand and pointed at his right palm. Every time the tip of his finger landed, origin energy from all directions would gather at his fingertip and land on his right palm. After pointing 3 times, Wang Lin's face became slightly red. His eyes shined brightly, and he let out a roar. Boom, boom, boom. The giant ape's body immediately retreated, and a large amount of blood sprayed out from his arm. There was a clear palm print on his arm, and there were 3 cracks spreading from the 3 fingers of the palm print to the rest of the ape's body. Along the way, the rumbling sounds continued to echo, and blood sprayed everywhere. Wang Lin's eyes brightened. He didn't look at the giant ape, and instead lowered his head to look at his right hand. A look of understanding appeared on his face. He didn't know the name of this technique, but he seemed to have grasped something in his heart. It was as if he wasn't using his own strength to gather origin energy, but to control it. In order to forcefully control the heaven and earth yuan qi, he had to gather it from all directions and forcefully transform it into an offensive divine ability. A mournful roar interrupted Wang Lin's thoughts. The giant ape's eyes were filled with fear as it watched the 3 cracks spread across its body. It seemed as if its body would immediately split apart if it used even the slightest bit of force. In this moment of crisis, the giant ape's body suddenly lit up with a white light. Under the white light, an illusory soul faintly appeared on its head. This illusory soul was very blurry, but it looked exactly like an ape. However, it had a slightly humanoid shape, as if it wanted to rush out of the ape's body and leave. Seeing this, Wang Lin's eyes suddenly lit up. Condense the soul to become a god. According to the Jade Slip, this is a spell that only rank 6 fierce beasts have. I didn't expect this giant ape to make a breakthrough in this life or death crisis. Wang Lin stepped forward and instantly arrived above the giant ape's head. His right hand pressed down, and the giant ape soul was forced back into its body. Become my spirit beast. Wang Lin stared into the giant ape's eyes and calmly said. The giant ape's body trembled, and its eyes were filled with fear. Its spiritual sense was wide open, so it could naturally understand Wang Lin's words, and it nodded. Wang Lin's right hand pressed down on the giant ape's body, and the 3 cracks on its body immediately turned into specks of light that dissipated. At the same time, a spirit-controlling seal recorded in the Jade Slip flew out from Wang Lin's hand and landed between the giant ape's eyebrows. It turned into a rune that flickered a few times before disappearing. At this moment, the mosquito beast in the sky had also killed all of the eagle beasts. It flew over and circled around the giant ape's body. Wang Lin sat down cross-legged on the giant ape's shoulder and looked ahead. The giant ape let out a roar and took large strides towards the distant meteor. Chapter 1150. The vast star system was filled with star fog. Although it looked calm, it was filled with endless killing intent. This was the rank 5 region of the Cloud Sea. Nearly 40% of the continents here belonged to rank 5 sections. For the rank 1 to 4 regions, rank 5 sects were unreachable existences. If a member of a rank 5 sect went to the rank 4 region, they would be greeted respectfully. At this moment, a whistling sound came from the originally calm fog sea in the rank 5 region. A ray of light pierced through, and inside the ray of light was a dragon-like spirit beast. There was a dignified cultivator standing on the head of the spirit beast. After this ray of light, the fog churned even more violently. The fierce beasts inside the fog scattered in panic, and several more rays of light flew by. This didn't end. In a short period of 1 incense stick of time, no less than a dozen rays of light broke through the fog and flew through the rank 5 region. There were all kinds of spirit beasts inside these rays of light, and there were cultivators standing on the backs of these spirit beasts. None of these cultivators came from the rank 5 region. They were all from the rank 6 region. The appearance of these people caused the rank 5 region to tremble. It wasn't just this place. More than 6 regions in the rank 5 region had the same scene. The cultivators on the backs of the spirit beasts had gloomy expressions that hid ecstasy, excitement, and endless greed. These cultivators from the rank 6 region all had the same goal, a wild continent in the rank 5 region. The northern part of the wild continent, Wanglin, was on trembled. Thunderous rumbles came from the distance, as if something heavy was constantly falling. The fog churned and surged forward. A few bird-like vicious beasts screeched as they flew through the mist, staying far away from them. Many fierce beasts scattered on the ground. It was as if the rumbles from the fog were extremely terrifying to them. A moment later, a giant figure 1,000 feet tall appeared. This figure was extremely thick, and as it got closer, its entire body was revealed. It was a giant black ape. Behind the black ape, there were bull-like fierce beasts chasing like crazy. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they kicked up a cloud of dust on the ground. The bull-like beast was surrounded by more than 7 different beasts. They were entwined together, forming a long line of beasts. They were like a tide of beasts as they chased after the black ape with no intention of abandoning it. There were also some bird-like fierce beasts chasing like crazy. Anyone who saw this scene would feel their scalp go numb. Even powerful cultivators would feel their pupils constrict. There were simply too many beasts. That was especially true considering that there were some rank 5 beasts among them. One divine ability after another whistled through the air toward the black ape. However, the black ape's body was extremely agile, and its skin was thick. Aside from dodging a few of the spells, even if they landed on its body, they wouldn't have much effect. The black ape was running on the ground, and the rumbles were the sounds of its footsteps. It was very fast, and as it ran, the wind howled. There was a mountain stream in front of it, and as it ran, the black ape stomped on the ground with its right foot. The earth seemed to shatter, and the black ape leaped into the air, crossing the mountain stream and rushing towards another mountain not far away. It moved like a meteor, and in just a few breaths, it arrived at the top of the mountain. There were countless eagle-like beasts circling above the mountain, and they all charged at the black ape. However, before they could get close, the black ape swung its arms and turned them into flowers of blood. It was as if no fierce beast could stop the black ape. It charged forward and instantly reached the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain was a nest that was hundreds of feet wide. As the black ape closed in, it slammed its right hand into the nest. With a bang, the nest was instantly torn apart, turning into countless fragments that scattered in all directions, revealing a small red grass growing in the nest. The black ape's right hand didn't stop there. After destroying the nest, it grabbed the mountain rock near the small grass and yanked it out with great force. The mountain rock, which was several tens of feet in size, was pulled out with a cracking sound. The black ape let out a roar toward the sky with a hint of joy and ran into the distance. Behind it, the eagle-like beast let out sharp cries. No less than 1,000 eagle-like beasts went crazy and joined the beast tide to chase after the black ape. As the black ape ran, it crushed the rock in its hand, revealing the small red grass inside. It threw it over its shoulder, and Wang Lin caught it. He looked at it for a moment before putting it into his storage space. He gently patted the black ape's body, and the black ape immediately felt it. It let out an even more cheerful roar. Its speed seemed to have increased as well. The earth trembled. From a distance, it looked like the black ape was jumping up and down. Behind it was a cloud of dust that mixed with the fog. The fierce beasts continued to roar as they relentlessly chased after it. On the wild continent, Very few cultivators would dare to provoke fierce beasts like this, much less steal medicinal plants in such an arrogant manner. One fierce beast might not be a threat, but if there were tens of thousands of them, or even more than 100,000, the terrifying scene was enough to shock anyone. In the distance, there were several cultivators from rank 5 sects who stared dumbfoundedly at this scene. They were like wooden chickens, unable to say anything. The group of 7 was extremely cautious when they came to the wild continent. They were afraid of attracting too many fierce beasts, so they didn't obtain many medicinal plants. Now that they saw the black ape's arrogance, they were shocked. The black ape sprinted and leaped into the air, crossing several thousand feet and arriving at the top of another mountain peak. This mountain peak was like a sword and was extremely steep, but the black ape moved as if he was flying. Once he arrived at the top of the mountain, he bent down and used his right hand to touch a misty flower that grew behind the mountain peak. It immediately picked up the misty flower. Just at this moment, a sharp cry came from the sky. It was a rank 5 eagle that was more than 500 feet tall. It broke through the fog and charged at the bent black ape. It was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it was less than 1,000 feet away. Wang Lin's expression was the same as if he didn't see it. The black ape's eyes narrowed. It bent down and grabbed the top of the mountain with its left hand. It swung forward, and its large body drew a circle around the top of the mountain like a swing. Its thick right leg immediately collided with the black eagle. There was a loud bang, and the black eagle felt great pain. It coughed out blood and retreated. The black ape borrowed the force to jump up. It didn't fight and instead ran away. There were even more fierce beasts chasing after it. Luoxing was sitting in a dark valley with his eyes closed. His face was pale, and there was still blood at the corner of his mouth that hadn't dried yet. His black hair was disheveled, and he looked very sorry. Whimpering sounds that sounded like the cries of ghosts lingered in the surroundings, sometimes near, sometimes far, and sometimes far away. There were even bursts of banging sounds mixed in with the sounds. Not long after that, 4 figures staggered back from the front, and when they were 30 feet away from Luoxing, one of them coughed out a mouthful of blood. "Master, 3rd brother died in battle. We can't break out." The 4 of them were all young men, and their white robes were covered in blood. Luoxing was silent. He didn't open his eyes, but there was sadness on his face. The valley he and his disciples were in was filled with fog. The fog was filled with dead souls that let out ear-piercing screams. Outside the valley floated 8 giant skulls that were surrounded by green lightning. They were connected to each other and formed a formation. This formation was very mysterious. It gathered the dead souls from the wild continent for tens of thousands of years and turned them into tangible objects. They fused with the formation and became a powerful spell. These dead souls couldn't be refined into pills. The beast's souls needed to refine pills were living souls. Dead souls were mostly the resentment of humans or beasts before they died. This resentment fused with the world and wouldn't dissipate for a long time. There was an old woman sitting on one of the 8 skulls. Her skin was dry and wrinkled, making her look like a bag of bones. She had a ferocious expression, like a ghost. If a mortal saw her, they would definitely be scared to death. There was a ghostly flash in her eyes that gave off a gloomy aura. "Fellow Taoist, sure, you only have 4 of your 19 disciples left. Why continue to harm your disciples? If you hand over that thing now, this old woman will leave immediately." Her gloomy voice echoed through the valley and clearly entered the ears of the 5 people inside. The 4 young cultivators' faces were pale as they silently looked at their master. Luoxing, it's not worth it to lose your life for a mere worldly possession. Although your cultivation level is high, you have been poisoned by my 5-poison sect. If you use any spells in a short period of time, you will definitely die. Think about it carefully. Luoxing's face twitched. He slowly opened his eyes, and they shined brightly. However, his face was filled with bitterness. He was the head disciple of the rank 6 clear flower sect, and was at the late stage of Nirvana Cleanser. He had secretly sneaked into the rank 3 region with his disciples to search for an item. Initially, Luoxing thought that this clue was not very reliable, but he did not expect it to be true. Everything went smoothly, but after he found the item, his whereabouts were somehow exposed, and even the item he took was found out. He was besieged along the way, and his disciples suffered heavy casualties. Even Luoxing was poisoned, and when he escaped here, the poison acted up and he had no choice but to hide in this valley to expel the poison. However, before he could expel the poison, he was caught by the old woman of the Five Poison sect. She used the sect's formation to trap him in the valley. He had already used a secret method to send out a message, but it would take some time for the people from the sect to arrive. Fellow Taoists, sure, even if your Clear Flower sect sends people, it's useless. According to what this old woman knows, aside from my Five Poison sect, the Yu Soul sect, the Tao Spell sect, the Escape sect, and the Devil Collection sect have all moved out for the item in your hand. The Jade of the Rank 8 Regions Heaven-Breaking sect and the legendary Nirvana Void pill recipe. He'd clearly revealed his formidable cultivation and injured the Black Ape, but the Black Ape still refused to submit, and its eyes were filled with hatred and unwillingness. Only when faced with the threat of death did he succumb. Presumably, this Black Ape, who often went to steal medicinal herbs from other fierce beasts, felt very conflicted when it was robbed. However, aren't there too many fierce beasts chasing after me? Wang Lin sat cross-legged on the Black Ape's shoulder and looked back at the billowing dust behind him. Angry roars constantly rang out in his ears. The mosquito beast had long since been put away into his storage space. The current situation was not suitable for it to appear. There were simply too many vicious beasts in pursuit. Many of the vicious beasts that hadn't been fighting for the herbs had joined the army of beasts in a frenzy as soon as they saw the Black Ape along the way. They had begun to hunt the Black Ape down. From a distance, the number of fierce beasts behind the Black Ape was already endless. There was only a line of dust that rose and fell like a wave as it tried to catch up to the Black Ape. The Black Ape paid no attention to all of this, and it even twisted its body from time to time as it strode forward. It avoided the numerous divine abilities in an extremely skilled manner, and there were even a few times when it was clearly forced into a corner, causing it to roar furiously repeatedly, as if it was cursing. A smile appeared on Wang Lin's face. His right hand reached out and a crack to his storage space appeared. He took out a piece of yellow paper and placed it on the Black Ape's shoulder. In an instant, a yellow storm erupted from the Black Ape's body and charged into the sky. The Black Ape's body trembled, and its eyes were filled with ecstasy. Its speed suddenly increased, and with one step, it left the herd of fierce beasts behind and landed in front. However, it didn't immediately leave. Instead, it turned around and roared at the herd of fierce beasts behind it. Not only did it not continue to escape, but also charged towards the herd of fierce beasts. It charged into the herd of fierce beasts at an extremely fast speed and punched and kicked its way through. It was as if it had charged out from the side. Roars echoed out, and the pursuing fierce beasts became even more frenzied. When Wang Lin saw that the Black Ape had just charged out and was about to charge back, he frowned and patted the Black Ape on the shoulder. The ape immediately stopped and began to flee again. Time passed. Perhaps it was because the Black Ape was moving too fast, but it was like a bandit. Wherever it passed, it would sweep away all the medicinal plants it knew existed and then leave. Gradually, the herd of fierce beasts behind Wang Lin grew larger and larger. The ground quaked, and the mist in the sky churned. The Black Ape didn't seem satisfied after searching the wildlands once. It led the countless beasts behind it toward the center of the continent. Wang Lin calculated the time and didn't try to stop the Black Ape. During his time on the wildlands, Wang Lin had learned that there were even higher-ranked fierce beasts in the center of the continent. The Black Ape charged toward the center of the continent at top speed. There weren't many mountains there, but there were many valleys. Both the inside and outside of the valleys were shrouded in mist, making it impossible to see what was inside. However, there were bursts of sinister pressure. As the Black Ape charged into the valleys, Wang Lin's divine sense became more focused. The valleys were too quiet, and there weren't any roars of fierce beasts. That was especially true after the black ape entered. It was as if all the fierce beasts had disappeared. Wang Lin wasn't the only one who was confused. The black ape also slowed down and stared ahead, unsure of whether or not it should continue forward. As Wang Lin muttered to himself, the ground began to shake. The fierce beasts behind him had already charged into the center of the continent and were heading straight for the black ape. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he pointed forward. The black ape immediately began to run forward. Under Wang Lin's divine sense, the black ape wasn't moving very fast. Gradually, the dense beast tide grew closer and closer, as if it were being led by the black ape to attack the valleys. Time quickly passed. As the black ape moved through the valleys, the entire beast tide rushed in. At this moment, Wang Lin's pupils shrank. He stood up and stared ahead. At the same time, a gloomy voice sounded out from the front. Five Poison Sect is handling some matters here. Those unrelated should quickly leave? Yeah. Just as the gloomy voice sounded out, it turned into a cry of surprise before it could finish. Clearly, he had seen the beast horde behind the giant ape, which was charging madly towards him like a boundless ocean. At this moment, Wang Lin's divine sense also discovered that outside the valley 10,000 feet ahead, there were 8 giant skeletons that were absorbing the endless dead souls and transforming them into supernatural attacks that surrounded the valley. He also saw a thin old woman standing up from one of the skeletons. The old woman's pupils shrank. This place was covered in fog, making it so that she couldn't see too far away. Her divine sense couldn't spread too far either, but the ground was gradually shaking. A moment later, she discovered the endless beast tide within the range of her divine sense. At this moment, she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. But at her cultivation level, her mind was naturally very sharp. When she saw the black ape, she immediately deduced that this large amount of fierce beast was chasing the black ape and the white-haired cultivator on its shoulder. Killing intent flashed through her eyes. She naturally didn't think this was a coincidence. She thought that if it wasn't the Clearflower sect that came to rescue them, then it was the other rank 6 sects that had arrived early. So fast, the old woman stepped forward, leaving behind an afterimage as she charged at the black ape. As she moved forward, a poisonous fog spread out. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he immediately realized that he had entered a battle by mistake. It was obvious that the 8 skeletons had formed a formation to trap and kill the people or beasts inside the valley. However, he didn't have time to explain. The old woman was too fast, and the poisonous wind was filled with killing intent. Wang Lin jumped off the shoulder of the black ape and gave the black ape an order. That black ape changed its direction without uttering a word. It took a detour from the side and went straight towards the 8 skeletons in the valley. At the same time, Wang Lin's right hand formed a seal and pointed forward. Black wind suddenly appeared and turned into several black dragons that charged at the old woman. The old woman's cultivation level was the same as Song Wuda's, mid-stage Nirvana cleanser. However, her poison attack was shocking, and her cultivation level was far higher than Song Wuda's. Seeing the black wind close in, her hands formed a seal, and she spat out 3 breaths of air. The first breath turned into a scarlet mist that spread out in all directions. When it collided with the black wind dragon, a heaven-shaking rumble sounded out. The second breath turned into black water that shot out like rain. It penetrated the red mist and shot at Wang Lin. Every drop of the black water contained a heaven-defying poison. If one drop landed on his body would instantly rot into a pool of blood. As for the third breath, it shone with a 7-colored light and suddenly turned into a huge statue that was 1,000 feet tall. Poison King, please appear. Poison Spirit Print. The old woman's expression was ferocious, and she immediately used a peak spell. The eyes of the Poison King statue gave off a ghostly light that was almost corporeal. The light intersected before the statue and formed a black mark. The moment the mark appeared, it immediately imprinted on Wang Lin. If he was imprinted on his body, not only would his body turn to blood, Even his origin soul would die from the poison. The old woman was extremely vicious. In order to kill the white-haired youth, she had taken the jade and the Nirvana void pill recipe for herself. After using her strongest spell, she was worried that Wang Lin would be able to dodge it. So she waved her sleeves, and a small snake as thick as an arm flew out. This small snake was her spirit beast. It was completely black and had a coxcomb-like horn on its head. The moment it appeared, a fishy smell filled the air. Chapter 1152. However, the old woman had obviously underestimated Wang Lin's Call the Wind celestial spell. After Wang Lin reached the Nirvana cleanser stage, the power of Baifan's 6 great celestial spells was gradually revealed, unlike when he was at the Nirvana scryer stage. More importantly, the fortune that Qing Lin had given him allowed Wang Lin to have a deeper understanding of Baifan's celestial spells. The 5 black dragons formed by the black wind collided with the red mist formed by the poisonous old woman's first breath. Thunderous rumbles echoed, and the red mist churned. The 5 black dragons roared and tore through the red mist at an extremely fast speed. They charged out like lightning and fused together in an instant. These 5 black dragons quickly fused together, and in an instant, an oppressive pressure spread out in all directions, suddenly turning into a long black spear. This lance wasn't corporeal and was almost transparent, but the sharpness it gave off was heaven-shaking. The lance charged out and ignored the black rain and the poison spirit print as it closed in on the old woman. All of this happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off of a piece of flint. It was inconceivably fast, and by the time the old woman had exhaled a 3rd breath and waved her sleeve, the small coxcomb horned snake appeared. The black spear was already less than 100 feet away from the old woman. A powerful, cold wind caused the old woman's expression to change greatly. Her wrinkled skin began to cave in, and her pupils shrank as she quickly retreated. She didn't have time to control her spells to attack Wang Lin. As she retreated, her hands formed a seal, and black scales appeared on her wrinkled skin. At this moment, she didn't look like a cultivator, but a human-shaped beast. There was a flash of killing intent in Wang Lin's eyes. As he floated in the air, the first thing that closed in was the imprint formed by the statue's gaze. This imprint whistled through the air and closed in on Wang Lin's chest at an unimaginable speed. At this moment, it was too late to retreat, and Wang Lin didn't intend to retreat. Although the poisonous old woman's cultivation level was higher than Wang Lin's, her spells were far more powerful than Song Wuda's, and her attacks were vicious. Wang Lin had killed a lot of mid-stage Nirvana cleanser cultivators. When 2 enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. The moment the poison mark approached, Wang Lin raised his right hand and stretched out his palm. In an instant, his palm was less than 7 inches away from the poison mark. In that instant, Wang Lin raised his left hand and pointed at the back of his right palm. He pointed at it twice at an extremely fast speed, and every time he did so, there would be a rumbling sound. The origin energy of the heavens and earth within a radius of 1,000 feet was madly controlled by Wang Lin in a rather domineering manner, fusing into Wang Lin's fingertips and into his right palm. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. The instant the poison mark touched Wang Lin's palm, a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering boom rang out from Wang Lin's palm. At the same time, a shockwave spread out in all directions. Under the impact of the shockwave, the black rain the poisonous old woman spat out was unable to continue descending. It was pushed far away by the shockwave and was unable to harm Wang Lin at all. This loud sound was even louder than thunder, and it formed countless echoes that spread out in all directions. Even Wang Lin felt like his ears were about to go deaf, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. The poison mark trembled, and countless cracks appeared on it. With a bang, it shattered and was pushed back by the domineering origin energy from Wang Lin's hand. The origin energy wrapped around the illusory statue's chest. Suddenly, a black palm print appeared on the statue's chest. 2 cracks spread out from the palm print and covered the entire statue in the blink of an eye. The statue shattered into pieces. Just as Wang Lin retreated a few steps, The small coxcomb snake broke through the shockwave and charged at Wang Lin. It let out a loud hiss and spat out a mouthful of poison. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. As he retreated, his right hand reached out and a crack to his storage space appeared. There was a flash of silver light, and the silver-robed woman walked out. Without even needing Wang Lin's order, she immediately charged at the small snake. Wang Lin's body flickered. He jumped over the battle between the silver-robed woman and the small snake and charged at the poisonous old woman. The poisonous old woman's expression changed greatly, and she continued to retreat in an attempt to avoid the black spear. However, the spear seemed to have entered her bones, and it moved faster and faster. There was even the sound of space being torn apart. After seeing Wang Lin walk out from her killing move, the old woman's expression became even more gloomy. She bit the tip of her tongue and was about to spit out blood to prepare another poison attack. However, just at this moment, Wang Lin's eyes were filled with killing intent as he raised his right hand and pointed forward. "Stop!" Suddenly, countless invisible threads appeared and wrapped around the poisonous old woman. With a single word, the poisonous old woman's body began to tremble violently. Green smoke came out of her mouth, and she let out miserable screams. She didn't spit out the mouthful of poisonous blood, but it flowed down her throat and into her stomach. This blood contained a powerful poison, and normally it wouldn't cause a backlash. However, just as she was about to use it, her spell was interrupted, and the stop spell was placed on her. The poisonous blood backfired, and, as she screamed, a large amount of festering appeared on her body. Just at this moment, the black spear closed in and pierced through the poisonous old woman's chest. However, it didn't leave her body and instead exploded. The poisonous old woman's screams suddenly stopped. Her body collapsed and turned into a pool of blood. Her origin soul was weak and filled with panic. Just as she was about to escape, Wang Lin waved his sleeve and took it away. Although this battle was short, it was extremely dangerous. Wang Lin still felt some lingering fear. With the poisonous old woman's poison attack, she was unstoppable within the same realm. Even someone with a higher cultivation level would be killed if they weren't prepared and were poisoned. Killing was a common occurrence for Wang Lin, but today's slaughter was completely inexplicable. He didn't even know the old woman's name. If it wasn't for the fact that she had been so aggressive and wanted to kill him, Wang Lin wouldn't have killed her for no reason. The moment the old woman's origin soul was captured, the small snake that was fighting the woman in silver immediately trembled. It was no longer fierce and continued to weaken until it was finally captured by the woman in silver. At this moment, the black ape had already circled around the battlefield and flew over the valley blocked by the 8 skulls. The large herd of beasts behind him roared as they charged into the valley. There were too many fierce beasts, and because the 8 skulls were no longer controlled by the old woman's divine sense, the skulls became unstable and the lightning connecting them collapsed inch by inch. Wang Lin glanced at the black ape in the distance. The black ape understood and immediately turned around to continue running. The earth rumbled as the fierce beasts continued to chase through the valley. There were also some fierce beasts that wanted to charge at Wang Lin, but they were all killed by Wang Lin with a wave of his sleeve. It didn't take long before there were no more fierce beasts left. All of them had chased after the black ape. Even from afar, one could see the monstrous smoke fusing into the fog. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he stared at the 8 skulls that were becoming more and more unstable. They looked like they were about to explode. After carefully looking at them, he stepped forward and arrived next to one of the skulls. His right hand formed a seal, and he slapped it. The skull immediately trembled, and the ghostly light gradually dissipated. It shrank into a fist-sized gray skull that floated motionlessly in the air. Using the same method, he sealed the remaining 7 skulls. This was clearly a formation treasure, but Wang Lin didn't immediately put it away. Instead, he chose to seal it. After all, he didn't know what was inside the valley, and his divine sense couldn't penetrate the fog. He cautiously walked into the valley. With just a thought, he could make the seal on the 8 skulls dissipate and the encirclement from before would be restored. The valley wasn't large. After walking in, the first thing Wang Lin saw was a skeleton. This skeleton was festering all over, and he could only tell that it was a man's corpse. There was a foul smell coming from the corpse. Frowning, Wang Lin walked forward and soon arrived at the center of the valley. He slowly spread out his divine sense and saw a figure sitting cross-legged 1,000 feet away. There were 4 corpses that had died from the poison. "Thank you for saving my life." A weak voice came from the figure sitting cross-legged. Wang Lin's expression was calm as he walked forward at a steady pace. He slowly approached and saw everything in front of him. The 4 corpses that had fallen to the ground were all festering. Their eyes were gray and filled with confusion. The same foul odor also emanated from their bodies. The person sitting cross-legged was a middle-aged man. His face was pale without any trace of blood, and there was a black line between his eyebrows. Even his origin soul was on the verge of death. It was obvious he had been poisoned too deeply, and this poison wasn't ordinary. It was a very powerful poison. Late stage of Nirvana cleanser. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. A poison that could kill a late-stage Nirvana cleanser cultivator was obviously comparable to the death and immortality poison. Fellow Taoist, you came here for the jade slip and pill formula. Although I don't know your sect, I'm sure you're determined to obtain these 2 items. Even if I don't hand them over, you have a way to open my storage space. Forget it. I can give you these 2 items. I only ask that you allow me to die a quick death. Don't continue to be tormented by this 1,000-violet worm poison. The middle-aged man's face was filled with bitterness, and even more so, he pleaded. Wang Lin silently pondered. He looked at the 4 corpses on the ground, and then at the middle-aged man before nodding. These 4 are my disciples. In order to protect me, they were poisoned by the 5 poison sects poisoned old woman and died. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with sadness. These 4 disciples had followed him to the end. If not for the recent events, they would have become outstanding disciples in the sect. Because of the poison, I can't use any origin energy in my body. Lend me a sliver of origin energy to open your storage space. I'll take out the jade and pill recipe. Once you take them, just let me die a quick death. For worldly possessions, I ended up like this and even implicated these disciples. The bitterness on the middle-aged man's face became even stronger. Wang Lin still didn't say a word. He raised his right hand and pushed forward. A powerful surge of origin energy slowly closed in on the middle-aged man. When it was 3 inches from the middle-aged man's body, the origin energy suddenly changed. Chapter 1153. With this change, the origin energy that Wang Lin shot out was not gentle at all. Instead, it became as heavy as a mountain and directly landed on the middle-aged man's body. But just as it was about to land, the middle-aged man suddenly raised his head. His expression was fierce, and a destructive aura flashed from his body, ready to explode. Wang Lin's expression was still cold. After he shot out his origin energy, his right hand reached out and a crack to his storage space appeared. The iron sword in his hand swept out. The sword whistled, and the middle-aged man who was about to self-destruct trembled. A line of blood appeared on his neck, and blood sprayed out. Not only did his body die, but his weak origin soul also died. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Wang Lin. His head fell off and rolled a few dozen feet on the ground. His dim eyes were still filled with ferociousness. His scheme before his death was not brilliant. To those who knew about the jade slip and the pill recipe, it was tempting. However, Wang Lin did not know about any of this. Most importantly, after Wang Lin entered the valley, the first corpse he saw and the 4 corpses that followed were similar in appearance. They had all died from poison, but in reality, there were some slight differences. Wang Lin was a cautious person. Although these differences were not big, he still noticed them. The first corpse had truly died from the effects of the poison. The other 4 corpses were different. They were killed first, and then their bodies started to rot. Wang Lin had a guess about the positions of the 4 corpses. These 4 people were clearly killed by the middle-aged man for some unknown reason. Perhaps it was as the middle-aged man said, that these 4 people were his disciples, or perhaps they were the disciples of the poisonous old woman. In any case, Wang Lin did not want to understand the cause and effect of this matter. He only knew that the middle-aged man was lying when he said that he had lost all his origin energy. For a person who was about to die to lie, there must be a reason. For such a person, Wang Lin chose to kill him without hesitation. You will die no matter what. It's just that you died a few breaths earlier. He looked down at the middle-aged man's headless body. His body was covered in blood and soon began to rot. His clothes were in pieces. Jade and pill recipe. Wang Lin began to ponder. The poisonous old woman must have trapped the middle-aged man for the jade and pill recipe. What kind of jade and pill recipe could cause a life and death battle between Nirvana Cleanser cultivators and make a mid-stage Nirvana Cleanser cultivator dare to kill a late-stage Nirvana Cleanser cultivator? This person's original plan was to self-destruct. Once he died, his storage space would dissipate. However, if one has sufficient cultivation, it is not impossible to open the sealed storage space after his death. It is not difficult to obtain the items within it. Also, from what he said just now, it's clear that he mistook me as not a person, but a sect. If that's the case, then the fight between the jade slip and the pill formula is a fight between sects. He said that his disciple was poisoned by the poisonous old woman from Five Venoms sect. The old woman I killed is clearly the poisonous old woman from Five Venoms sect. Furthermore, the poisonous old woman had immediately used a killing move the moment she saw me. Clearly, she had already determined that I represented another sect. Most importantly, before she attacked, she said, "So fast." Wang Lin suddenly looked up at the sky, and his pupils shrank. Could it be that a large amount of cultivators from various sects are rushing over here? If that's the case, then the value of the jade and pill recipe must be extremely high. Wang Lin took a deep breath, and his eyes lit up. If 70% of my analysis is true, then the middle-aged man must have cared a lot about the jade and pill recipe. Since he knew that someone could open his storage space, I fear he wouldn't have placed them inside. Wang Lin looked down at the valley until his gaze landed on the 4 disciple skeletons. His eyes gradually narrowed. If I was him, what would I do? Would I continue to place them in the storage space or hide them somewhere else? Wang Lin closed his eyes and put himself in the shoes of the middle-aged man. After a while, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes, revealing a strange light. His divine sense swept past the 4 disciple skeletons, but he didn't find anything. However, he wasn't willing to give up. His left eye flashed, and a ball of flames surrounded the 4 skeletons. The crackling sounds of burning echoed in the quiet valley. The 4 skeletons were highly toxic, and they glowed under the burning flames. Soon, they were all refined into ashes. However, a jade slip and a palm-sized fragment of a beast bone could be seen within the gray mark. A hint of excitement flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. His right hand reached out, and the jade and bone fragment landed in his hand. After sweeping the jade with his divine sense, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed. Rank 8 heaven-breaking sect. Wang Lin took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He looked at the other item, the beast bone fragment. Even with Wang Lin's mental fortitude, he could hear his heart beating faster. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the beast bone fragment in his hand. He couldn't speak for a long time. Nirvana Void Pill. Even though he didn't know what the Nirvana Void Pill was, he knew what the words Nirvana and Void meant to powerful cultivators. In particular, there was one sentence in the pill recipe that shocked Wang Lin like a bell had been struck. He tightly held onto the beast bone fragment, and his eyes were filled with ferocity. At this moment, anyone who tried to steal the beast bone fragment from him would suffer a crazy attack from Wang Lin. If you consume this pill, you will have a 10% chance of turning the rules into origin and entering the 3rd step of cultivation. If you consume this pill, you will have a 50% chance of passing the 1st Heaven's Blight. If you consume this pill, you will have an 80% chance of entering the divine origin realm. After a while, Wang Lin's expression finally recovered. He stared at the beast bone fragment in his hand and put it away with the jade without any hesitation. He didn't have time to look at it in detail. At this moment, Wang Lin was very sure that the value of this pill was enough to cause a catastrophe for the cultivation world. It was obvious that the news of this pill recipe hadn't spread too far, but as the battle for it escalated, it would shake the entire Cloud Sea Star system. It had been a long time since his mouth felt dry. Wang Lin licked his lips and carefully cleaned up all traces of himself in the valley. He also took away the middle-aged man and the other skeleton. After determining that there were no clues left, Wang Lin flew out of the valley. He waved his right hand and was about to take away the 8 skulls. However, after a moment of hesitation, Wang Lin pointed at the void, and one of the skulls exploded into countless fragments. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he quickly put away the remaining 7 skulls. After pondering a bit, he took out the corpse of a disciple that had died from the poison and put it back in its original position. Then he carefully cleaned up the skull fragments inside and outside the valley. Finally, he only left one piece and placed it in a very secret place. After doing all of this, Wang Lin took a deep breath and put away the silver female corpse and the other 7 skulls. He turned into a ray of light and chased after the black ape. That old woman's origin soul has been captured by me. I can't let her die. As long as she doesn't die, no one will know that it was done by an outsider. They will think that the old woman took the pill recipe and wanted to take it all for herself. So she went into hiding. After all, there is still a fragment of her treasure and the corpse of the disciple. Time was of the essence, and cultivators from various sects would arrive at this wild continent at any time. Wang Lin didn't dare to stay for too long, so he could only do this much. At this moment, he no longer had any desire to continue fighting for medicinal plants. He took a step forward and disappeared from where he stood. He used spatial bending to reappear next to the black ape that was luring the ferocious beasts away. As soon as the black ape saw Wang Lin, it became excited. It roared and pointed at a mountain to the side, clearly wanting to tell Wang Lin that there were more herbs there. Wang Lin ignored it and waved his right hand to take the yellow talisman from the black ape's body. Then he put the huge black ape into his storage space. His body flickered as he shot into the sky. He cut through the fog and stuck the yellow talisman on his body. Still not satisfied with the sudden increase in speed, he took out another beast-hide talisman and stuck it on his body. As a result, Wang Lin's speed reached its peak. In the blink of an eye, he pierced through the fog and entered the starry sky. Even now, his heart was still pounding like crazy, and he felt like he was in a dream. Everything that had happened on the wild continent and what he had obtained was still unreal. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Wang Lin knew that if the news of the pill recipe being in his possession was leaked, he would be endlessly hunted in the Cloud Sea. Even in the Thunder and Rain realms, it would be the same. This was because this pill recipe was enough to make some cultivators go crazy. In particular, those old monsters at the peak of the late stage of Nirvana Shatterer or Heaven's Blight that were in closed-door cultivation for a long time would make them go crazy. I can't let anyone know that this is in my hands. In the Rank 5 region, Wang Lin was moving at full speed. He didn't dare to spread out his divine sense. He had a feeling that there were a lot of cultivators rushing toward the wild continent in the Rank 5 region. If they met him while he was rushing, it would arouse their suspicion. Perhaps it wouldn't be too big of a suspicion, but once they found something on the wild continent, they would definitely focus on everyone they suspected. The more important the matter was, the more secrets one had, and the more one needed to be calm. After charging out a bit, Wang Lin called out the black ape and sat down on its shoulder. He calmed his mind and ordered the black ape to fly toward the continent of Mo Luo, where the origin sect was. This place was several days away from the continent of Mo Luo. Although Wang Lin was eager to leave, his expression was calm, as if nothing had happened on the wild continent. He sat on the back of the black ape like a true cultivator of the Cloud Sea. Several hours later, Wang Lin was far away from the wild continent. There were several wild continents nearby, making it impossible to tell where Wang Lin had come from. Just at this moment, Wang Lin's calm pupils suddenly shrank, but they soon returned to normal. Rays of light closed in from the distance. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.